Great. Good evening, everyone. Roll call, please, Evelyn.
Trustee Weekly,
Present.
trustee McAvoy,
Present.
trustee Wells,
Here.
vice president Lawson,
Here.
president Marquez.
Here. Thank you. Next item is 1.2, reported on closed session. We took staff recommendation to approve item 6.1, approval of comprehensive school safety plans, and that was anonymous. And then we also didn't finish our closed session. And so items 6.2 through 6.4, we will come back at the end of our regular session for that. Again, welcome everyone. Para los que hablan español y necesitan interpretación, pueden marcar el 978-990-5137 y presionar el número 8377041 y el signo de números para la contraseña. For the public, you are encouraged to speak to the board on issues of concern, whether or not the issues is or are on the agenda. To address the board, please complete a speaker's card if you're present, and if you are online, please submit a Google Doc and give the card to Evelyn here to my left. If you wish to speak to the board on subjects listed on the agenda, you will be called to the podium at the time that the item is being considered by the board. If the item is not on the agenda, you will be called to the podium during oral communication. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person per topic unless otherwise noted. And are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I was hoping that we could move 13.1, which is the recognition of classified employees, to after oral communication. That way, they can go a little earlier on the agenda and not have to sit through several hours of things. And then also I was wondering if we could do one other quick staff recognition as well. So do the classified staff, and then I have a quick staff recognition I just like to mention.
And I'm sorry, for just for clarification, you said you want item 13.1 to be moved where?
To after oral communication.
After, okay.
I actually, do we have oral communication tonight?
We do, actually.
Oh, okay. You know what? Well, let's do it before oral communication, because I know they're either here in person or they're online.
Okay.
And then also just I have a quick additional staff recognition under 13.1, just to modify that a little bit.
Okay, with that, if there's no other changes to the agenda, can I please get a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, so item 13.1 has been moved up to oral communication, and this is recognition of classified employees.
Thank you. Well, it's a special evening tonight. We have in our audience 2 of our ground specialists, although we are recognizing all of our ground specialists. Few of them couldn't be with us tonight. So I am hoping if you are here representing our ground specialists, if you could come towards the front, please, just to the podium. And I know Dr. Baker will be presenting a recognition to you, but there are a few words I would also like to say, if you don't mind. So during this 22-23 winter season, Redwood City and the surrounding areas experienced several wind and rainstorms, which seemed like an unusual event recently. The RCSD campuses experienced fallen trees, limbs, minor flooding, as well as preempt storm drain maintenance, debris removal, and erosion control. Ground specialist, who we have here tonight, we have Sergio Bazan, Dennis Kakalurius Kikos, Michael McKinney, Rigoberto Verdosco, and as well grounds lead Brandon Jennings. We worked tirelessly into the night. We heard many stories of all of your hard, dedicated work to prepare our campuses for these storms. The grounds team also worked throughout the storms to ensure that RCSD students and staff were safe on campus and not impacted by the effects of rain and wind. On March 14th, 2023, a large redwood tree fell on the McKinley campus. The location of the fallen tree was directly in the path of students and families used for dismissal. The grounds team reacted swiftly and were able to remove the tree, clearing the path for dismissal, ensuring the students and families did not experience disruption to their routines. The Redwood City School District would like to show our appreciation to our grounds team dedication, responsibility, and responsiveness with a certificate for each team member. We appreciate how hard the team has worked, oftentimes in inclement weather, to support our students, staff, and campuses. So we really want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. You were outside when many of us were probably inside trying to huddle and get warm because it was such a unique weather pattern these last few months. And we just really want to thank you. You're always out there helping our staff and students, whether it's cutting trees just on a typical day, clearing debris, cutting the grass so that the kids can enjoy outside. So we thank you from the bottom of our heart for your hard work. Thank you.
Celia, did you want to come up and?
And we also have here our management team. If you want to join, we have Martin Cervantes, our director of facilities, and we have Thomas DeRosso as well, who oversees our grounds crew.
And just what's really great is that. Keep reading.
During this time, the superintendent had the pleasure of speaking to Martin or Thomas at 4:30 or 4 in the morning for several days in a row. And also the pleasure with some principals at 5 o'clock in the morning, talking to them about their school sites not having power. And were we going to have school or not have school? So thank you all so much for all your support, everything you did during that time. Martin, Thomas, Rigoberto, Dennis, it's amazing that we have staff like you that push forward so that we can have the education fulfillment for our children. So another round of applause for all of you.
Again, Wendy put everything very nice, but I do want to thank you, and with the board, I'm sure behind me, that we really do appreciate everything you guys do day in and day out. There was someone that said the district works because you do. So we really appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you very much.
All right, so I had one other recognition that I would like to do. We were recently informed that our own Wendy Kelly, I know she didn't know I was going to say this, but she got an amazing award from her colleagues in Region 5 in California as the Administrator of the Year for this year. So I just wanted to So I'm going to formally recognize you. We've had a few of our administrators over the years get this award, not in the last couple of years. So it's a very special honor because it really is your colleagues calling you out and saying that we think you're an amazing administrator. And I know that Wendy does a lot of work countywide, working with other human resources administrators and others. And I know you're always sharing best practices and all of that, helping as many kids as possible in our county. So thank you very much, Wendy, and congratulations. Yeah, you bet.
So I just realized that we do have, so I don't know how this works because then I messed up. Item 6.1, we do have public comments, so it will have to be moved under action. So
I
what
can
do-
modify my motion to move 6.1 to action.
Wait, which one is? Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Which one is it?
6.1.
6.1, the approval of bond program consent items. So we'll move that to action. So
Then we have
whoever,
to take them both separately, is it? Okay.
Well, it just says 6.1.
oh, I see. That's all the consent. You're right. That's the
6.1 is the
consent
whole
item.
consent.
So 6.2 and 6.3 move to action.
Okay,
Right.
Everything.
okay,
All the bond items are
Okay.
going to action.
to action, okay.
Well, I made the amendment of the motion. Does somebody want to second it?
I'll second it.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so with oral communication. Do we,
Chris Roble.
Hi, so yes, I would like to talk about following up on the conversation we had earlier with John Niblin. One of the questions I was hoping would get answered is who's doing verifying expenditures for compliance with respect to Prop 39? So that's still an outstanding question. And more importantly, how is money spent, right? Is it done through this secret subcommittee? And if it is done through the secret subcommittee, can the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee at least participate? With respect to Prop 39 compliance, so by the way, I did confirm with John outside that is not a law. That's it's an opinion. So he agrees with that that's an opinion of somebody. He did read the law on the screen there, which is exactly what the Constitution says. With respect to expenditures, so clearly deferred maintenance is not a Prop 39 expense. Clearly repairs are not a Prop 39 expense. Workforce housing is not a school facility. It'd be better to give the teachers a raise instead of the workforce housing. So these are all just things I want to obviously set forth that you could have read from what John presented. The only thing I'm not going to sit for 2 hours after the bond thing, but I think one example that's on that list is $2,800 for a laptop for an accountant. I do not know that does not seem, unless you have a full-time bond person and you're going to argue. But anyway, that's an operating expense and that needs to be pulled from the Measure T bond program. So that's not a Prop 39 expense, a laptop using. So I think those are the main topics I had. And yeah, thank you.
thank you. Okay, and with that, everything under the bond program consent items was moved under action. So item 6.2 or 6.1 approval of bond consent, 6.2 approval of Measure T. Do we have to? Because they're under action. Do we have to vote for 6.1? Okay,
6.1 is just the whole thing, so we go 6.2.
okay. 6.2 approval of Measure T bond program tracking list of items under 20,000.
So do we know where we're taking public comment? Which item?
Well, he already had.
We just said 6.1.
Why don't we just take the public comment?
Right, because I don't want to approve it without comment first.
So we, Chris, do you have a public comment for 6.1 or thanks?
So again, I already said, I think the laptop needs to be pulled. $2,800 is an operating expense. Second issue, kind of related to this, it really belongs probably on the last, not on the agenda, but I want to underscore, so John works for the county, he works for the government, he doesn't work for the necessarily, so he's, I think it's very important that the CBOC have its own independent counsel, and John referred to KBOC, that would be a good organization to pull from, he recommended them, I think that's a good idea. They need to have their own independent counsel, their own independent advisors, not somebody that the district recommends, because they're obviously supposed to be independent and they're overseeing the district. So it's very clear, and you can talk to KBOC. I've talked to them. Nobody thinks that's a good idea to be having county council advising an independent citizens bond oversight committee. So please think carefully about that. And I would, KBOC would probably be a good, or somebody like that, or somebody from a taxpayer organization that's on a CBOC. Alameda County taxpayers are still looking at, there are lots of taxpayer organizations that are, and those people are on CBOCs that could advise. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. With that, then item 6.2, approval of Measure T bond program tracking list of items under 20,000.
So can I get some clarification about the laptop for the bond account? And I'm assuming that is an expenditure that's okay? Or should we pull it for now and you can look at it, or do you think it's okay?
I think it is, but we could pull it and look at it.
I'm fine approving it. I mean, I mean, it's the accountant is for the bond, right? And this is equipment so they can do the job of the work on the bond. And that I understand is acceptable expenditure.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm happy to make a motion to approve 6.2.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
6.3, approval of proposal for the furnishing and installation of the water pump with Scapes Incorporation for Orion Alternative School, formerly John Gill School.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then bond program action items 7.1, approval of Measure T final projects list.
Does anyone have any questions about any of the recommended projects on the list?
Does anyone? I don't think so. No, no questions?
No, I think that, we had a discussion about this at our last board meeting, and then looked at some of them. And I think that this kind of, what I see here took into consideration the feedback that was given from the other trustees. And I just want to, that's how I read it. And so I'm okay with that. I think we should approve it, but if anybody thinks that their comments weren't heard, then I just wanted to make sure you were taking this chance.
So with that, if there's no more questions or comments, can I please get a motion to approve item 7.1?
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 7.2, approval of amendment number 2 to the program management services agreement with RGMK. Okay, no questions or comments. Can I please get a motion to approve 7.2?
I just wanted to make one comment. I do think it's appropriate to continue with the management company that's been used for the past, I don't know, even know how many years since the inception of the bond project. And I also appreciate that I think it's prudent to make these extensions short term. It does mean that, we have to, because as we just talked about, we're finalizing the bond program, and RGMK to date has, proven to provide excellent program management, really helping to deliver what was scoped out however many years ago for the original Measure T projects. That they've been on time, they've been on budget, under budget. And as we just did, it's actually allowed us to spend down the board reserve instead of having to use it to cover for, for contingencies and whatever. So, for those reasons, I think that this is actually a wise move for us to make. And so I'll.
Yeah, in fact, Mike, I just want to add to that because I know, we've gotten some comments that are contrary to maybe what you just said. And I want to remind people that there are districts around us that have gone way over budget, way over time. They've had to spend millions and millions of dollars out of their general fund to complete projects or just not complete projects at all. And so I do want to reiterate that I am very proud of the work that our project management team has done, our own bond directors, those who are working on the bond, our superintendent, our CBO. I mean, all the people who have really made this continue forward. We're on time, we're on budget, we're actually under budget. So we've been able to move some things and do more projects than we initially thought we would be able to do. So it's extremely impressive. I mean, if you can go from district to district and you don't see the smoothness of how this is operated. So I just want to say thank you. And I agree that we should continue on to kind of finish up what we're doing.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the comments and for sure, our GMK and all your staff for all your knowledge and obviously for getting all of our projects on time and on budget, which is again, great for our district. So with that, can I please get a motion to approve 7.2?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
Okay, so item 8, school and community reports. 8.1, school plans for student achievement, reports for Garfield Community School and Henry Ford.
Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, so it's with great enthusiasm that we present our final 2 SIPs tonight, and we're going to start off with Garfield School and Lupe Torres, our principal.
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Baker, President Marquez, Vice President Lawson, trustees, Redwood City community in general, specifically the ones that attend our lovely schools. Before we actually get started, I actually just want to say that I really appreciated Measure T because I've been at Garfield for 13 years, both as an assistant principal and as a principal. And I definitely think we needed that 2-story building that was built. And so I want to say thank you for that. And I know that's not part of this presentation, but I thought it was a nice transition because it actually spoke to me as I heard what was being discussed, that I thought that for us, that was a valuable investment in our community. And it definitely speaks to some of the goals that we will be referring to. So without further ado, let's see what's on the next slide. Our agenda is very similar to the previous schools that have also been presenting. And we see goal 1. And by the way, all 3 goals that the district is focusing on actually align with Garfield's goals. And we think that working towards them and meeting them actually ensures that our students are successful, not only at Garfield, but beyond, which is the whole purpose of education, is to prepare our students to be successful and to thrive in their futures. And so as we see goal 1, we read our goal often at Garfield because we really want to focus and anchor what we do on the things that speak to us. And for us in goal 1, what really speaks to us is that phrase, appropriate social emotional supports. And of course, that inclusive and supportive environment, that without those things, it's really difficult to build on and to achieve mastery in goal 2 and goal 3. And so we just wanted to highlight that those 2 phrases really are must-dos at Garfield. And I know that other schools feel the same because it really sets up the environment. And the environment really speaks to how students are feeling, the risk-taking that they will take, the trust that they will have with the adults that are there to support them, and the families that are there to also be part of that collaboration. So on the next slide, you will see one indicator that gives us information on whether or not students are really feeling supported in an environment. And this speaks to suspensions. When students are suspended, it's usually because they have done something that merits support. And so we want to make sure that suspension is defined at Garfield as an in-house suspension. We don't do any outside of the classroom suspension. So all of these suspensions that we do have this year and in previous years, for the last few years actually, have always been in-house. We believe students need to be present. They should always feel welcomed, and the learning should be continued and supported regardless of whether they have made a choice that has not been one that has helped them develop and be connected to the community, or one that has impacted others around them in the community. So you will see our targets. You will also notice that there is an increase, and you will wonder why. How do we go from 2% to 5%? Well, what we are finding is as we are returning back to school, and we know that this is the second full year that we've been back on campus. However, things are taking a while for us to normalize. And so things are coming up that weren't coming up in the past, and it's taking a while for students to share space. It's taking a while for students to identify emotions, manage those, regulate them. It's taking a while to understand the dynamics of social groups. It's taking a while to work as a community. It's taking a while to develop what it means to have social boundaries. And of course, all of that plays into how they interact and how they perceive their actions impact others. And so we just want to make sure that you understand that it's not that we want to suspend students for behaviors. It's that we really want to slow down what is happening. And so we don't want to sweep any behaviors that we think need to be addressed in a community that will impact a child's ability to really engage in what's happening for them in school and what's happening for others, because we are learning in a community. And so in tier 1, you will see that if you were to look at all of those bullets, you can put them into 2 categories. And we call that the in to out work. We want to develop students on the inside, meaning being in touch with feelings, beliefs, values, thoughts. And then the out means how we display that outwardly, how we use those things to interact with our family, our friends, our staff, specifically their teachers, and the community that they are among. And so it's really important to look at all the different ways in tier 1 that everyone is getting that support so that they're able to navigate and support each other in a community that is positive and developing all those things that maybe don't come as naturally as one would think, that those are things that we actually need to be taught as children. We need to be reinforced, and we need a lot of feedback and support on. And then in tier 2, you see that we continue to engage with different groups of teams so that we are supporting students in a way that's more intense, using some of the practices that we have been implementing this year, highlighting the restorative justice practice, because that is very important in having students process and have conversations that lead them to really reflect on how their choices came about, finding root causes. And so tier 3 encourages more of that. We do a lot of conversations at Garfield that requires a lot of time, a lot of space, and a lot of flexibility, because we want different groups to be part of the conversations, because we want students to really feel that they're supported. And so on the next slide, you will see what strategies we see as being effective. And of course, you're going to see that a lot of teams are coming together, that we believe in students being supervised. We believe that students need to know that they're supervised, not because we don't believe they know how to make the right decisions, but because children need guidance. And so it's really important that they understand that we are there to guide them and to support them. And it actually instills in them a sense of safety if they know that there are staff members that are there to make sure that students are following the guidelines, that they are supporting each other, that if there is a mistake, that there is somebody that's going to be there to support them through that. How do we know this? Well, last year, it was really hard to get kids to have conversations. Something would occur in school, you'd bring them in to have a conversation, and it was a lot of silence. They weren't ready to talk. Maybe the language that they needed to process and really name their feelings and thinking about their rationale for their choices wasn't right there for them to use in a verbal way. And so it's taken a while to get students used to having conversations. And now those conversations are happening very, I think very organically and also in a very safe way. I used to experience a lot of students resistant to telling the truth because they feared being in trouble. And so we want to dismantle that belief that if you are in the office or if you are being asked to have a conversation, that means you're in trouble or that you're being labeled as someone that's not a good fit or not a good community member. So we really appreciate that the conversations are happening more organically and that they are more honest and that students are in those conversations really as a member of that conversation and not just being talked to. We've done a lot of work to make sure that our staff agrees with the restorative justice approach because you need everyone to really understand the foundation of that approach to maintaining relationships, forming communities, addressing harm when it is occurring, and how to support students to be part of the community when they are making choices that hurt themselves or impact others. And so we wanted to make sure that we share a little bit of data with the surveys that we've been giving our staff throughout our time with the restorative justice training that we've been a part of this year to make sure that you all knew that we are looking to make sure that everyone is part of the decision-making and that we're looking at the panoramic results to also indicate where are the areas that need more support and what are students telling us with their responses. On the next slide, you'll see what we think does not work at Garfield. And one of the things that we don't think is very effective is a discipline matrix that's really pre-made that kind of already gives you this next step given a behavior. And we find that every situation is unique, even something as we think of not being that high leverage, like chewing gum, to one person might seem like it's a big deal, but for someone else, it is not. We think like processing how that impacts the classroom, how that interaction with the adult really matters because we want the adults and the students to get along, that it's always important to have a conversation, and a matrix just doesn't allow for that. So we really kind of move away from doing things that are about just making it the if and the then type of approach. And we want to make sure that we're always including that piece where we're asking students about their emotions and their social emotional awareness of why something is going on to make sure that those are part of the conversations. We find with all our suspensions, 100% of them, the conversation has to be done. You can never just see a behavior, even in a fight. Our experience is that even in a fight, you have to take the time to have conversations with the people involved to really understand what is happening. And there is also a social emotional component to the situations that they're in. So not doing those things definitely don't work at Garfield. And I wouldn't imagine that work at any school, to be quite honest. So what are we considering changing? Well, we definitely think there's room to create more opportunities for our students to engage in positive interactions, positive experiences, positive school-wide events. We haven't had very many this year. We really want to increase that for next year. We know they appreciate it. We know they want to be part of it. So definitely that's a priority. We also want to make sure that students are a part of the referral system that schools participate in. Usually those documents are meant to document basically what is occurring so that we have things there and we are able to have record and refer to it. But really it should be a document that supports the student as well, and that they get an opportunity to participate in the narrative that is created around the experience that they had, and that there's some way to get the student perspective and voice on that document, because many times they do see things very differently, and yet only the adult is completing the referral when it's given to the office. And so we really want to work on that. We've already spoken to our restorative justice trainer, our consultant, who is Dr. Kamoya Johnson. And she says right now, she has not seen a school or a school district have a referral that actually has a student component to it, but she's very excited to work on that. And that's definitely something we hope to work on before the start of our next year so that we can really add that piece and really understand more so that we can support our students more. And then, of course, we need to get our parents involved. We really want them to be part of discussing topics that normally aren't discussed. So having a balance between talking about the topics that we need to discuss in school site council and LPA and ELAC meetings, but we also want to balance it with topics of interest that will help them understand more of the social emotional needs of students and how parents can be a part of that and supporting their students too. On the next slide, we have another indicator of how students are doing. And so again, going back to the piece where we want to make sure that the environment is supportive and inclusive. And one of the things that we know gives us some information is whether or not students are showing up to school. Are they attending? And that chronic absenteeism is one of the indicators that we have. Our target for this year is 20%. To be completely transparent, we already know that we did not make that target. This is something we have been working on. As you can see in Tier 1, the strategies we're using in Tier 1 are very similar to the strategies we're using in our suspension rate to reduce them. And one of the pieces that's a little different is the phone calls. We have an amazing office staff who goes above and beyond to make calls even when they're not on the clock. And they do this because they really want to make sure they're outreaching to our families and making sure that they're calling families when families are available to have conversations. And so it's really important that we continue to do everything in Tier 1 because we do want our students to feel like they belong. We do want our families to trust us, and we feel that's key. We have to develop more trust with our families so they're more transparent about the reasons why their students aren't coming to school on a consistent basis. And of course, you know that absenteeism or the rate is based on the 10% or more of the days enrolled. That if a student is exceeding that, they are considered a student that has chronic absenteeism. And so we do have students that are definitely in that category for various reasons. And so Tier 1 supports are essential, but they are not enough, as you have heard in previous presentations. And as you've seen the data for all of our sites, you know that the Tier 1 still needs more work, and we definitely agree with that. In Tier 2, we are doing home visits. We have even picked up students, dropped off students. We have offered to enroll students into after-school program if the issue is not being able to pick up students at the end of the day or needing more support with students so that they are more engaged with school. We definitely host a lot of meetings, and we definitely want more resources allocated to this because we really want students to see this, not that they're in trouble, but that we really want them in school. And so again, there's that fine balance between having meetings to address this that let students know the importance of attending school, but also not having the child who is the center of this conversation in some ways, feeling like they are doing something wrong or that they are in trouble because they are not doing what they're being asked, because I think that is counterproductive to getting them to be part of school and trusting that we are happy when they are in school because we want for them so much to get all the learning that they need in order to prepare for their next grade level. And of course, in Tier 3, we have more conversations. We have other teams. It's a little bit more intense. And I think what's key in both the suspension and the chronic absenteeism is that we really rely a lot on our mental health team. We're really fortunate that we have 3 mental health, full-time mental health staff at Garfield, and that we also have a support person. I don't recall if our extended day counselor is full-time or is it just part-time, as Lee said? Part-time. So even during extended day, we have someone there that is going to support students, and that does, and that's been actually very helpful in in having students have someone there beyond the 4:30 time. On our next slide, you will see that lots of things that I've already mentioned are working, are stated here. One thing that I haven't mentioned that I know you already read in our presentation is that we do have an SEL program. This is the second year that we've had second step in our K3. And in this year, we decided that we were going to implement, we do it for the culture. Ms. Lisette actually researched it after our mental health team came together and decided that the second step wasn't appropriate for the 4th through 8th grade. And so that is the new curriculum we're using this year that also seems to be very engaging because it connects videos, music, culturally relevant content that students can really identify with and that they can see the application of the lessons in action. How do we know that it's working? Well, we do have fewer truancy letters being sent out, so that's decreased. And the percentage of students chronically absent has also decreased. We also noticed that there is a decrease in the number of unexcused absences, which we also need to be better at tracking the difference between an excused absence and an unexcused absence. On the next slide, what doesn't seem to work is changing strategies without giving time to evaluate something. And what we mean by that is that we don't want to suddenly not do something or stop doing something because we don't see the outcomes or the results that we were hoping. That we have to stick through this. We have to have that stamina that we want our students to have in sticking through something in order to see the effectiveness of those strategies. And one of those strategies has to be always including students and treating them with dignity when they are there and making them feel that they are always welcomed at school, whether they're coming twice a week, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, or all day or every day. And so what we are considering changing is actually finding some curriculum that addresses the ethnic studies, history portion of learning, because we think that students need to see themselves more in the curriculum beyond what teachers already do to supplement and bring those things in. We need to have something that is very intentional, age appropriate, of course, and something that teachers can have resources for so that they're not having to look for this outside. And of course, we still want to continue to change the structure of our parent meetings so that they are more engaging and prepares parents to support their students in the ways that we have found has been helpful. Why do we want to do this? Because we have seen our panorama survey results, not just this year in 2022, the fall survey, but in previous years, we've been declining for a few years. And we know that students are not feeling that the school is engaging. They're not having conversations about school. They're not seeing the connection between school and their real lives. And so that's why it's important to address those things, because we think all of that will support students wanting to be part of the school community. And on the next slide, we will talk about goal 2, which will happen when goal 1 is achieved and more effective in our school. Yes. Ms. Gonzalez?
Hello, I'm Fanny Gonzalez-Sprouse. I'm the assistant principal at Garfield. Our school mission states that we want to create a multilingual and a multicultural environment, and one that respects home language and home cultures. And because of this, goal 2 is important to us at Garfield. The next slide shows our reclassification targets. Almost 60% of our students at Garfield are multilingual learners. This includes 59 newcomers. We also have 64 students who are currently being monitored. They're as RFEP students. 29 or 9.5% of our bilingual students have been reclassified this year. And we're hoping for a couple more, which would bring us really close to meeting our target. The second part of goal 2 is one we are definitely still working on. We have 89 out of our 305 English learners, which is about 30% of our English learners, are considered long-term English learners, which means that they are not reclassifying after 5 years, which is the second part of the goal. Data that was included in the link in that provided by staff development does show that 43% of our English learners moved up one or more levels in the 2021-2022 school year. On the next slide, we have some strategies that we've implemented thus far. At Garfield, we have a 50-50 model, and that means that students in K-5 receive instruction in both English and in Spanish. In our K-3, in Spanish instruction, English instruction is about 50%. We have one English only teacher and one Spanish language instruction teacher at each grade level currently. In 4th and 5th grade, we have their Spanish language instruction is reduced to 1 hour, and that's usually in social studies or in science. We believe that their primary language is something that is an asset to them. It adds to what they are learning, and it's the foundation upon which we build their English. We're very fortunate to have coaches Mariela Talavera and Laura Polido working with our K-5 teachers, as well as Ms. Rafaela Michel, who's working with our 4th through 8th grade newcomers. On our next slide, we provide some additional data just to demonstrate that although we're not meeting goal 2, we are making some progress. If you look at the bar graphs, you can track the cohorts. And so it shows that the percentage or the number of students at or above benchmark on the LPAC has increased in each grade level, except for the kindergartners who started in 2020 and moved into 1st grade in 2021. They did not improve as a group. As a school, a strategy we definitely want to implement, or something we really want to improve, is to better align the instructional practices that we already have in place. We want our grade levels to be building upon each other. Selfishly, we would also love to have more time with Coach Talavera and Coach Pulido. So sharing to them really isn't working for Garfield. We just want them at Garfield all the time. Something that's not on our slide that we would love is a system to monitor student growth in ELD so that we could revise instruction as necessary. That it's a daily thing that we look at, is up by twice weekly, every 2 weeks. And so that we're able to address the needs as soon as we can. We know that there's an overlap with our ELA program when it comes to our English learners. Because again, our longtime English learners are not reclassifying. We do want to make sure that they proceed beyond the level 3 or 2, which is often where English learners get stuck. And so we need to definitely look at our English language arts program, our overall reading program, academic vocabulary, and writing. And so as we move into goal 3, we just want to realize that success of our English learners definitely depends on the efficacy of our language arts program. And so goal 3 speaks to the academic progress of our students and what we need to do to accelerate their learning. We, of course, don't want to just prepare them for exams. We want to prepare them for life. We want to accelerate their learning in order to increase their knowledge base and their confidence. We want them to see themselves as learners, and we want them to know that they can be pushed, and we want them to know that they're capable of succeeding. And so all these things that are part of testing speaks to the importance of the social emotional well-being that was described in goal 1. Our next slide shows our target levels for the iReady exam. We chose 6th grade and 8th grade as our highlights because we see them as transitional years. And so in the fall, they were 3%, and our target for spring is 10%. Let's see. There's also a link at the top. We could go to that if we want, but we don't necessarily need to. But slide 7 shows that overall in winter, 31% of all our students improved in math and 29% of all of our students improved in reading. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, this is the next slide. Oh, yes, please. Thank you. You're going too fast. Oh, okay. And so this is our targets for CASP. We are interested in looking at growth. And so we chose our current 6th graders and we highlighted how they scored as 5th graders. So in spring of 2022, 7% met or exceeded standard. And our target for spring is 25%. Again, with the current eighth graders, as seventh graders, 21% met or exceeded standard. And so as eighth graders, we want them to graduate in the spring with a 40% of them meeting or exceeding standard. And then there are our targets for our ELLs as well as for the school overall with the math targets beneath. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so here are some of our tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 strategies. A big part is our CAP tutoring program. This is a program that Lizette Hernandez, our community school coordinator, was instrumental in bringing to Garfield 2 years ago. We're fortunate to have a math program, a small group, and as well as one-to-one, and a reading program that started in January. These programs, this tutoring occurs both during the day and after school. As the slide shows, we also have small group support during the day with Maureen Cole. She saw 40 students last year and she's seeing 35 now. We are also investing some additional time to just try and engage students in testing. It might not be the most exciting time for them, but trying to motivate them to do their best. We made some Gator Goodie grab bags, kind of like mini care packages that they can, use during testing or after testing. It has like affirmation bracelets and stickers and stress balls and mints and snacks just to give them some brain energy and keep them pumped. We're also dedicating additional staff development time around discussing skills, data, how each grade level can more seamlessly flow into the other, and what each grade level feels is a focus for their area. On the next slide, we have a range of instructional practices that our teachers use. Especially impactful has been our iReady staff development. The goal setting that we do within classrooms for students during family teacher conferences and as teachers in grade levels and grade level content areas. And we've also really appreciated the RCSD integrated units that are being used in our K-5 classrooms. The next slide shows just a way that we have been analyzing if what we're doing is working. This is the iReady typical growth and stretch growth data. So a typical growth is the average growth that students make for each school year at each grade and each placement level. Whereas stretch growth is the growth that iReady has found helps students move either from below grade level to meet expectations, or they're already at grade level to go beyond that. And so overall in reading last year, 45% of our students met our typical growth levels, and 15% met stretch growth levels. And from September to December, 27% met the typical growth and 6% met the stretch growth. And the next slide is similar data for math. And I just want to apologize that at the bottom where it says typical growth, on the table it says 45%, but the correct data is 37%, which is in the text. And then for iReady Math on the September to December, there's just a blank percentage. The correct data is 18%, which is again on the text. It didn't transfer to the table. So we do see that our students are making typical growth, but of course that's not going to be enough if they're not meeting grade level yet. And so as a school, what we really want to focus on is accelerating their learning. We don't want them to just make a year's growth. We want them to make more than a year's growth. Okay. And on our next slide, we just show some CAP tutoring data, and Ms. Lissette's going to speak to that since she's our resident expert.
So you can see that actually CAP tutoring program has been instrumental in having students grow in their math and reading according to iReady. Specifically, this speaks to math. But more than anything, I think what we've seen the most is how instrumental tutoring has been to the self-efficacy and confidence building of students. So of course, we see more students going closer to grade level. But if we take a street data approach, what we actually find is when surveying students, 85% of them felt like they had improved overall in their math and reading. And when we asked them, 70% actually talked to their parents about math tutoring. And so when we listen to what they're saying, students are saying things like, I'm getting smarter, I'm getting better. And when further prompted, how do you know? They say, I know that I struggled before, but now I can solve problems faster. I know that I didn't understand before, but now I actually look forward to learning. And so when we take that into consideration, that student response and student voice, what we realize is that students, more than anything, want to learn. They do want to learn. They want that instruction, and they're looking for that positive feedback. And when given, students rise to the occasion. And so even when we see students groaning about going to tutoring or trying to sneak off and miss their tutoring session, at the end of the day, they can cognitively recognize this is impacting me in a positive way. I'm learning, I'm getting better, to the point that, like Ms. Gonzalez mentioned, this is our second year with this program. We had a wait list of 6 students in 7th grade who wanted to be a part of tutoring, and we made that happen because we wanted them to see that when they ask for something, we'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. And some of that is coming from parents who heard about the tutoring program from other parents, and they're like, I want my child in it. Others are students that were already in tutoring previously, and they want to continue because they saw how it worked for them before. And then another student is, my younger sister has been in it. I've seen it work for her, and now I want to be in it too.
And then finally, on our last slide in this section, we realize, first of all, that at the top, these really aren't strategies. However, they are more of a statement of what we know needs to be done in order to support student academic and accelerated growth. We will be strengthening our MTSS system. We want to have more frequent data cycles where we drill down to next steps, have interventions in place, and provide more feedback and coaching. We want to continue to take care of the social, emotional needs of our students and provide culturally and personally relevant curriculum. We want to provide supports and scaffolds to learning, and at the same time, create independent thinkers, not dependent learners. We're really looking forward to our CRLP training, to developing our teachers as leaders and increasing coaching time with Mariela, Laura, and our math coaches. Overall, like in goal 2, we want to increase alignment between our classrooms and put into place systems that strengthen what we do well and eliminate what is not working. In the next few slides, Ms. Lisette is going to share some different aspects of Garfield.
So I'm Lizette Hernandez. I'm the community school coordinator at Garfield. And so what you'll see is just a few snapshots of what it's like to be a part of Garfield community. And even though 4 slides cannot encompass what happens at this school and what this school has meant for me, I think I will be able to share a little bit. And so as previously mentioned, a big part of our Garfield mission and goal is this core belief at Garfield that we want to honor, respect, and celebrate home cultures and language. And a lot of that goes into how we spend our time together, both as classes, with our community, and just teachers too. And so when we look at events that we plan at Garfield, I think it's very easy to write off an event as, oh, it's just an event, or it's just a party, or it's just a time from this time to this time that we're coming together. But the planning and intentional thought that goes into what events we plan is a way that we want to bring about the celebration of culture and language. And so we do that by facilitating joy in students, in their schooling, and cultural relevancy in their lives. And so some things that stand out to me is every year we have a guest come from Mexico City to come do sugar school workshops with our students. And it isn't just like a one-stop shop in a day. It's actually paired with work that goes into ELA units, where teachers teach about what's going on in Dia de los Muertos, or why are certain symbols prevalent. And so it's curriculum that builds on these experiences. We had a musical performance also by Wind Ensemble that champions contributions by Latino artists. And so this is just more ways that we want students to be able to see people that look like them and help them create visions of what is my place in the world, where can I go, and where might I carve out a space for myself. Also, a big part of that is developing leadership skills in students. And so a lot of our events this year, we've also planned with our student council, our middle school student council, and then our junior student council, which is part sponsored by Kiwanis of Redwood City. And so this is really two groups that focus not only on community service within their school, but in the larger in the larger Redwood City community. And so if we go to the next slide, part of building student leaders is creating avenues and spaces where we want student voice. And part of saying we want student voice, it really comes from a space of humility and belief that what students have to say matter, and that we believe that in building fearless voices of students, we're really going to listen to what they say and then do something about it. And so it doesn't mean that blindly students get to say, I don't want to wear a uniform, and suddenly we banish uniform. But it's like having these conversations of, why is this important to you? Where do you feel like you belong? Which friendships or which relationships are important to you? And when we look at some of the comments in our panoramic surveys, we see what at first glance can seem like funny comments about pozole and about recess and wanting 4-hour recess. But when you really look past that, what we're really hearing is, I want more time building relationships with my class. I want food that speaks to me. And I'm willing to come to school if I feel like I have a place where I belong. And so one of the areas that really led to this increased, I guess, thought of what are students really saying is, during the pandemic, when we were preparing to return to school, we spent a lot of time planning and researching what is it that students really needed to support their return to school. And so we looked into, did there exist SEL standards that we felt like students could reach? And so that kind of led into this whole path of what SEL curriculums exist and how can we incorporate that so that all students are getting instruction in identifying emotions and communication. And that also led to then our other focus into restorative justice. And even though these had been things that we had been doing for years, we wanted to have a more intentional approach with students and with the adults, knowing what it is, knowing how to communicate what it is, and bringing in students into that process. And so when we look at the future, we want to think about what are students identifying as not working, what is working, and what can we do to change that? And so one of the areas that we've seen is that students really struggle with relating to people across difference. And so part of that, like we mentioned, comes from knowing who we are, who students are, seeing people that look like them, speak like them. And so when we think about why we want to bring in ethnic studies, part of that is so students can learn more about themselves, and in the same way, extend that empathy to learning about others and building relationships with people of other cultures, other languages, other ethnicities. On the next slide, a lot of this work wouldn't be possible without parents. I really believe that when parents drop off their children, they're really trusting us to build a part of their education that is separate from their home. And so we see our parents and our community continuously show up, whether that's coming to get fingerprinted on a weekend so that they can participate in their children's field trip, or donating snacks for our Dia de los Niños field day. A lot of this comes from not having pre-imposed beliefs or values of what engagement looks like or sounds like. It's really letting our families show up as they are and seeing that as inherently valuable, because in really meeting our families, we realize that at the center of it all, they are the first educator in their child's lives, and we are here to supplement and to support that. And so, like previously mentioned, in meeting with our parents in Cafecitos and ELAC, in school site council, we're identifying that there's areas of need and support around the social emotional area of students, with topics such as bullying. How much privacy is enough privacy with my students as they're growing up? How do I regulate social media? Even topics like how are drugs prevalent in our community? How do I even have that conversation with my students? And so we're really wanting to develop the social, emotional, physical, and intellectual aspect and strengths of students. But we're also showing families that their voice matters. So when they say something to us like, I want to know more about how to talk to my student about things that are happening at home, or I want tutoring for my child. If we make that possible, if we show them that this is what we're doing and we actually get a service to them, then we're not only telling them that their voice matters, but we're also showing that you can trust us with what you're asking us to do. And so again, this is coming from a place of humility that families already have the expertise and the ability to tell us what they need. And so we need to be able to hear that and honor it for what they're telling us, instead of thinking that we know what they need and imposing whatever we think that they need. And so on the next slide, these are just some of the data points to resources that we have at Garfield. And so one of my favorite things about Garfield has been being able to work part of a team that really isn't constrained by a job description. I think what you'll find is that a lot of the time we fill very many roles, whether it's being a yard duty one day or being in a classroom on another day, or translating at an event one day. All of this is really not a singular moment in time, but it's something that is contributing to a larger picture of what community looks like. And so I've really seen modeled a vision, a mission, and leadership that centers families and students. And so that's what going to Garfield, working at Garfield makes me really happy and proud to be a part of, because I get to go to work trying to make a vision happen. And so when I think about what partnerships or practices I want to bring in, it's all with the vision of I want to make this vision a reality for students and their families. And whether that's cultivating relationships with students and families so that they can feel safe at school. I think all our team is willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen. And even our data can't capture everything that we do on a day in and day out. And just, for example, our mental health data, that's number 65 is just the number of one-on-ones, people that are getting one-on-one therapy, but it doesn't capture the 222 students that get drop-ins or check-ins on a daily basis because a parent asked, or because a teacher asked, or a student wanted to check in and talk to someone. It doesn't capture the 10 plus students that are in group counseling. I think a lot of this data also doesn't speak to what we're seeing that we continuously need, which is mental health services that really hold the family and child together. And so I think at this moment, what we're seeing that we need is therapy services that cater to families. So whether that's family therapy or sibling work that perhaps is not there yet. We're also seeing that the time that it takes to process an event cannot be quantified by a number of sessions. There's really no way to put a cap on grief or a cap on working through a transition. And so sometimes when we see that students require more sessions to work through something, we want that to be a possibility that we can readily give them. And so as we continue looking forward, we're just trying to see what partnerships continue to build on that mission. And we're seeing we need to also recognize the importance of providing opportunities for creative arts programs, and ones that include our general ed students and our SPED students.
So what more do you need from the board was asked of us, and we do have quite a list, lots of it. We feel very supported in currently, and we're just asking that you continue to support us in these ways. One of them speaks to the 3 mental health counselors and the 1 Una Vida counselor we have for the extended day. If we could continue with that, we would really appreciate it. It's definitely needed. And then the CAP tutoring, that was a great support. We were planning on funding that with our own site budget, and we were happily surprised to hear that we were going to get that support from Liz and from Enrique to be able to provide a program at Garfield that Garfield didn't have to use their own funds to do. So we would love that to continue for next year. And then, of course, one that is really important is making sure that as a priority school, that we are given priority to filling sub requests. We have quite a number of subs requested weekly, and we have created a table that gives you a little picture, a little snapshot of what the request for subs have looked like from August to March. We haven't included our April. It is getting better, but it has required the administrative team to take classes for quite a number of teachers that have been out. And so we would really appreciate being prioritized when finding subs, as well as, of course, finding teachers that can teach at Garfield. We have amazing teachers now, but many of them are not returning next year. We are working with HR, with Wendy, with Liz to find teachers, and we want to make sure they're qualified, and qualified doesn't always mean number of of experienced years. It means really understanding what that candidate has to offer Garfield and whether they will be able to meet the challenge of being at Garfield, knowing that they are going to be working with restorative justice, with SEL curriculum, with learning a new adopted curriculum for math. And so that requires a teacher that really wants to invest in learning about those initiatives at Garfield and has the heart and has the belief that our students are going to be able to be part of their experience in teaching and that they can make a difference and that our students are learners. The other thing that I think is important to highlight in our long list is that, we do have quite a few students in the middle school using vapes. And we are very worried because we know that that's a sign that there is a need that is not being met, that they are using the vapes for. And so along with having vape detectors in classrooms, we actually want to find an effective anti-vaping program that we can have for our students, not waiting for them to be in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but actually having some education that will prepare them for managing that type of behavior that is definitely filling a need that we are not filling for them, or that they are not able to manage and articulate the need. And so that would be something that would be super helpful. I know Patrina has been amazing at providing a lot of supports. She's definitely a champion for Garfield, and I appreciate that. So I don't know if she would be the person that would be able to support us with that. One thing that we also would love to put out there, we don't know if this is possible, but we do have a lot of teachers that have young children. And if we could get childcare on site for them to support them, that would be a big help, because they want to be with their children too. And they also need support in paying for childcare. And so if we could provide it for them, then we could also find this to be something that will keep teachers at Garfield for more years. And then, of course, being a champion of Garfield community is an ask that I want everyone who is here to support Garfield to be. I definitely want to acknowledge that Trustee Wells has been a champion for Garfield. I have been on board meetings where I've heard negative narratives about Garfield, and you have been one that has interrupted the narrative by countering that comment with a positive. And so I really appreciate that, because we definitely need people that believe in Garfield and that will be interrupting those comments in a way that is done in a positive light and also very authentic. And like I said, Patrina, Liz, Dr. Baker, you're all champions as well, but I publicly ask that all of us be champions of Garfield, and that would be a great support for us, and that we would really appreciate any support that you can offer us, knowing that, of course, you do what you can, and I know you want to know more about us, and we're willing to have conversations. It doesn't always have to be in a boardroom. We can have conversations at any time with those of you who would like to engage in that. to learn more about this. So thank you for your time. We know it's been a long process. We're school 11 and you still have school 12. So we appreciate that. Don't feel you have to give us accolades. If you're ready to move on to Henry Ford, we're okay with that. So thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, and I will go ahead and open up for my colleagues to go ahead and make any questions or comments.
I mean, thank you, Lupe, Lizette, and Fanny for coming and presenting tonight. I am definitely a champion of Garfield. I believe my colleagues are too. So I'm not sure I know the particular reference, but I think that, you know, your students are, your community is, it's an amazing one, right? And the work that you're doing there to support it and sort of help drive it, you know, in such a positive direction. Sometimes it's unfair, the benchmarks that we put and say, like, this is the finish line that everybody's supposed to get to, because if you're not all starting from the same spot, you could run the fastest pace ever and you still might look, you know, unobjectively like it's still behind. And that is just not the case there. There's so much growth and love, and we can hear it in the presentation here. Obviously you're talking all about the restorative practices, you know, how everybody in the community is participating in trying to help all the students succeed, from the office staff, you know, making phone calls all the time to be able to pull people in. I think that's really neat. Yeah, I think there's a lot here that I just think shows the strength of the community, and appreciate hearing about it. One common thing that we hear, and I hadn't quite heard it before this way, was the need for ELD curriculum across the district. And you had asked for actually like formative data to try and put that in. I mean, is that maybe, Liz, I don't know if that is that something that gets pulled in when we're evaluating curriculum there? Like, can we get more check-in points for our emerging bilingual students to make sure that they're making progress going along instead of just waiting for the annual summative?
So there's actually something that's coming out next year that is, we haven't seen it yet, but it's meant to be kind of a mini little LPAC that can be given throughout the year to measure progress. And so we've heard that that's coming. We haven't seen it, and everybody probably gets nervous about giving the LPAC more than once a year, but it wouldn't be that big, but it would be meant to be something that would give more of a progress monitoring approach towards the development of English, but we haven't seen it yet, but we've heard about it. So more to follow on that.
Okay, cool. That'll be neat to see. And then I like seeing, thanks for pulling out the data, and Lisa talking specifically about the CAP tutoring and the success of that program. Do you think is it CAP specific, or is it really like tutoring in general that is the effective thing?
I think I can only speak to CAP, but I know one of the really intentional things we did when searching for a tutoring program was, could it be led by experts? Because there exist many tutoring programs that are volunteer-based, that are peer-based, but we wanted people that knew what they were teaching. And CAP specifically is by instructors that have been teachers for many years before. So they have their own curriculum, they have their own assessments, they have their own professional development. So they work very independently. And so I think because of the way that they work, we see those improvements.
And they also provide training for those teachers, from what I understand, the instructors that they have a training piece that they go through. We've talked to a parent yesterday about it also. So it's something that I know Garfield uses, but other sites also use them. And
We have 4 schools that use them
Thank
right
you.
now. I'll pay for the LCAP.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks. Go Gators. Appreciate hearing about it.
I'll go ahead and go next. Thank you very much for the presentation. I really appreciated hearing from you tonight, and thanks for being here. Some of the highlights for me that I heard tonight that I know is so true with Garfield is, really the importance of getting students to school and keeping them in school, right? Because we know if we can get them to school and they're at school and they're engaged, they're going to learn, right? It'll come. And then, some of the things that you're doing with really having those conversations with them, in a very humane way and really taught, social, emotional, talking about what's going on. I really appreciate that. I feel like that's the way to be, encouraging honesty and then really having that conversation. Like we don't want to penalize people for being honest, right? We want to have that honest conversation because that's how we move through things and figure out how we best support. So, thank you for really doing that. I loved, hearing that you're bringing in the parents as well and recognizing that they're an extension of really, they're the main focus. We are an extension of what they're doing, right? And that comes out in the way you talk about the work that you're doing. So thanks for engaging them in a very authentic way. Again, I think both with students and families, you're doing it in an authentic way. You had a whole bunch of things that you're doing. Really appreciated that. I did want to mention, on the vaping, I know that when my daughters were at Sequoia, this would have been a few years ago, some of the Sequoia students who had been vaping and very addicted to it, they put together a program kind of peer-to-peer, really talking to other students about, don't start because you don't want to be like me where you've been addicted and then you have to get out of it. So one thought I had is Petrinia could contact their wellness coordinator. And actually Janet and I are in the wellness committee. I'm happy to send Petrinia an email, but you could talk to her. And I was thinking maybe we could track down, maybe there's either like some Woodside or Sequoia students that could maybe help. Maybe some of your students would look up to them. And if they're talking about like why you shouldn't do it. So just a thought, and I'll follow up with Petrinia, and I'll include you, Lupe, as well on that email exchange.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, because I do think like sometimes, adults talking to kids, but anyway, you get it. And then, childcare on site, the other idea I had there is there are some efforts in Redwood City and also in the county right now really looking at childcare. So that's something that we could think about. I mean, I don't know if we have a place on site where that could happen, but maybe, they are looking for facilities, right? So John, you and I have been in some of those conversations, and I think we could follow up with them again. And then finally, just, thank you for all your supports. I did want to just say this publicly to you and to those who are here from Henry Ford. But one of the things we talked about is Dr. Baker is going to be basically gathering all that, kind of putting together a spreadsheet, thinking about what are all the asks. And then I think maybe in June, kind of May, you're going to be kind of, deciphering it and figuring out how much things will cost and what, all that. And so just to know that I think in June sometime, hopefully we'll be talking about that and hopefully circling back. So just know that this has been a really important part of the presentation. Every school site, I think, has done a good job of putting forward their ideas. And then we need to figure out what can we do and how would we do it? So thank you very much. Really appreciate everything. And I so appreciate all that you do every day for kids. Yeah.
Thank you all so much for your presentation. And like my colleagues here said, the work that you do every day, both you here as well as those on Zoom and those not able to attend for the kids. So thank you so much. In terms of absenteeism, there's a couple different approaches that I've seen in the literature is effective. And I tried to look through your list and see if they were there. Maybe you're already doing these things, but just wanted to call them out. Having like group prizes for attendance. So getting groups together, having them encourage each other to attend and having prizes if you hit certain attendance records. And then also summer's upcoming, doing summer outreach has also been shown as a pretty effective technique for improving absenteeism. Again, apologies if that was already something you're done, but it's just something I saw in the literature. The CAP tutoring looks awesome. I'm a big fan of tutoring. And so I'm very happy that this is working out. I did notice there were fewer hours in the 7th grade than the 6th and the 8th. Looks like there were a lot of hours for 6th and 8th, but a lot fewer for 7th.
For 7th, there existed a group that had already received tutoring last year. And so this year, because at that point they were closer to grade level, they received 1 month of tutoring, like a boot camp, math boot camp and then they stopped. And so then we started a 7th grade group now with new students.
Got it. Cool. Thank you so much for the explanation. Super happy to see the student-driven goal setting and self-assessment as a strategy that falls under metacognition. Wonderful approach there. On the CAP and iReady data, I noticed we were looking at December 2022 data. Do we know when the spring data is going to land?
We have spring or February for iReady, not CASP, and it looks just as amazing.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Just a blunt question. How much do you need for the first aid kits?
Ms. Gonzalez, you were,
Ballpark?
No idea.
No idea.
No
Okay.
idea.
It's okay.
we just know that that was the recommended list to have prepared. And so we
Okay.
thought that all schools really should have that be part of something that we all have ready, because we will hopefully never need it, but we should have it and it should be uniform. And so I know Ms. Gonzalez was the person working with Leslie and Martin actually to work on that, but it was just something that we thought, well, this should actually be something that's kind of like a standard ask and a standard thing that is given to all sites.
Seems eminently reasonable to me. I've got my CPR AED, like think first aid should be something that we have around. I loved the out of the box thinking on on-site childcare for teachers and staff. We'll explore, see what we can do. I think suggestions like that are great, and it's wonderful when we can get them from the folks that need it. So thank you so much for the innovative suggestions there. Cool, thank you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate it. I think in the interest of time, I don't want to repeat what's already been said. One quick question on the mental health counseling. I may have heard it wrong, but are the students limited in the number of hours? They are. Okay. What's the limit and why?
I believe it's 12 sessions. I think that when we have therapists that are outside contractors, they're not limited in the number of sessions. I think with the Redwood City District mental health counselors, they are limited. I'm not sure as to how that came about or how the number came about, but I think we've seen some students closed, or I think the clinical term is terminated, which sounds awful, but when we see that, but then we continue to see the same students kind of engaging in unhealthy behaviors, we kind of wonder, like, were they really ready?
Yeah.
So there's a
Understand.
presentation coming up
Right.
after Henry Ford in regard to mental health.
Yeah.
So maybe-
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that. I love the idea of the student voice in the referral form and taking the student perspective. I think that's really important to understand. Obviously you had the conversation, but to, have that on the referral too, what happened from the student's perspective. And I think that having that too, and I know you know this, but will help you kind of see if there's a pattern. Are there certain things that are causing this behavior to happen? So I love that idea. And then just briefly on your what are you considering changing on the chronic absenteeism? You mentioned, the slide mentioned encouraging teachers to send personal calls or messages to check in with the chronically absent students. And I think we don't give enough value to that. I think that's really, really important. And I actually was having a conversation this week. It was at Woodside High School with some students regarding their panorama survey. And it was, about teachers checking in. Do teachers care when I'm absent? And how can my teachers show that they care? And universally, all the students said, they can check in with me. They can just say like, hey, here's what you missed when you were gone yesterday, or hope everything's okay. Just acknowledging that like you weren't here went a long ways for the students in high school. And I think we know that we all want to matter. We all want to have people care about us. So I think that's actually really, really important. So thank you for adding that in. And with that, I'll pass it on.
And again, thank you. And again, I don't want to repeat what everyone said, but one of the things that I want to highlight, and I want to tell you guys to just keep on having those conversations. Lisette mentioned trust with parents and students. And again, I think in that community as well, everyone wants to feel welcome, but I know some people need a little bit more, a hand to hold on to them so that they can take the first step, and then they can just kind of walk on their own and keep going up the ladder. And then again, with the CAP tutoring, I think it's great. It's awesome to hear that the students are actually going and asking for the tutoring for themselves, whether, like you mentioned, a sibling had been there before or not. And then of course, kudos to Mariela, Laura, and the coaches. Obviously, they're doing an awesome job for you guys to want them at Garfield all to yourselves. So, it's great to have people that have, of course, we have great teachers and then they move on, they come to the district office, but they're working on the bigger picture to help everyone out. And so again, kudos to all the coaches out there. again, continue to work on the trust and of course, mental health. Obviously, that's a big subject that we all care about. And, you guys are doing a tremendous job. Also a big shout out to the Redwood City Education Foundation and all of our mental clinicians for supporting our Bayside schools, because, we do know that you guys need it. And so I appreciate everything you guys do. Just like everyone else had said it, day in and day out. You guys matter. And obviously, you guys care for our students. You're here because it's your passion. And so we really appreciate everything you guys do. Thank you.
Great. So I know it's been a long day, but I just want to say, Lupe and Fanny, I know you've been at Garfield both 13 years now. And I remember that time we were all there and we were taking over Garfield because it was a charter school. I remember what it was like. I remember what you went through. At that time, I was not the superintendent, but at the same time, we were getting all the feedback and considerations of what was happening at that school site and how, with your leadership, and of course, Michelle was there, Fanny, you were there. They said you were not there yet. You turned that school around. You turned it around. Yes, there's a dip right now because, I know COVID did a lot. And mental health is definitely at the forefront for all our school sites. And it's something that the board is committed to, is definitely the mental health support for all our schools. You've been fortunate enough to receive some additional. And I know that we're going to have a mental health report tonight after Henry Ford. And we're going to talk a bit about the wellness center, that well-being center that we got a grant for. It's to help, all kids in the district, but, keep up what you're doing. And we know that mental health is a big piece. We know that CAP tutoring is a big piece. And we heard from another community member yesterday when Liz and I were in a meeting that, how effective tutoring is. And this is one of the tutoring programs that we have seen that has been most effective, with the exception of not. Another one that's really effective is with our own teachers, doing it. But our own teachers, they've had a long day, don't want to go and have another session with, a group of kids. So if we can find, and I know CAP, when I have spoken to them, I'm also looking for additional people to hire. They said it's just like us, because they are retired people, or some are people that have not retired but have been teachers at one time or taking a break and just want to work with kids. So if we can continue that forward in our district, I think it'll be very supportive for all kids. But we'll continue to move in that direction for all. But my word for you, for all three of you, Lisette, you've done an amazing job since you've become the community school coordinator. You did an outstanding job when Lupe, Fanny, Lisette, we were there with those parents saying, I'm sorry, you're not going to have a 6th grade or a 7th grade here next school year. That night we said 8th grade. Yeah. But, these 7th graders who have been there since TK or pre-K will be 8th graders because we had teachers that will, 2 teachers that will stay. So that was a hard night. I know you love the kids. I know you love the community, but you're moving forward, and you thought the best thing is to move these kids to a different school site where they're going to get the support, get their needs met. And so even though it was hard to present that to the parents, which we all did, and Lupe and Lisette and Fanny, you did a great job again. It was hard, and I know it was hard for you, but I congratulate you for going in that direction. It was the right thing to do. With that being said, thank you for everything. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for your feedback. We appreciate your support. Have a good evening.
Break before we go on. Okay, all right. We have another one coming up, and she is ready. Henry Ford.
Press the button on your right.
Oh, the little red light. There you go.
Okay. Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Baker, President Marquez, cabinet members, and community members. I want to introduce our staff. I'm Jennifer Knopf, principal at Henry Ford, and we have our assistant principal, Nicole Crawford, and our counselor, Mary Ann Nakla, and a bunch of amazing teachers here. So thank you for being here and
you wanna
staying for the
stand
day.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. I know, I'm like, I don't mind actually being up here. Okay, so goal 1 is designed to ensure our students' social emotional needs are being met, that we have a welcoming, inviting community, and we measure this through chronic absences and suspensions. And our counselor, Marianne, is going to go ahead and report on that section.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here to talk about the Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 strategies we've been using to support students' social, emotional, and behavioral growth at Henry Ford. So as far as Tier 1, our school-wide approach, one of the things that we really care about at Henry Ford is relationship building with our students. As a staff, we really try our best to learn all of our students' names, and we try to make sure it's a welcoming environment. We make sure to say hello and goodbye to every student. We also want to make sure it's a welcoming environment. So we've created different clubs to meet our students' interests. We've also picked different enrichment programs at our school to fit our students' needs and what they like. Another thing that we also do for Tier 1 is we really like to make sure that our students are aware of the expectations, our PBIS expectations, and we teach them from the beginning of the year and throughout the year some of the rules and what's required of them on our campus. And to continue to motivate them, we like to pass out Mustang tickets, and we do weekly raffles for PBIS. Another thing we have at our school site are counselors. We really take the time as counselors to listen to our students and support them with whatever they may need. Another thing that we do for Tier 1 is Students of the Month Assembly, and it's based on character traits. So whatever character traits we believe are the most important that we'd like to see throughout our student body, we make sure to highlight that and pick students each month who are exhibiting those character traits. At our school, we're also lucky enough to have our PTA who do monthly Project Cornerstone lessons, which are different social emotional growth lessons throughout the school. We, as counselors, push into every classroom school-wide, and we do SEL lessons ourselves. For upper grade, it's bi-weekly, and for lower grade, we try to push in once a week to make sure that the kids have a foundation for social emotional learning. Another thing that we do at our school that is so fun is a mindful minute, and it's hosted by us counselors, and I know our teachers love it. I know. We practice making sure that we can self-regulate. We practice deep breathing techniques. We practice coping strategies, and it's a minute every morning hosted by a counselor. So fun. It's what the kids look forward to. I have kids come up to me every day telling me that they learned this technique or that they practiced this at home, and I have parents coming up to me as well. So it's been really great to be doing that every morning on the announcements. Another thing we have at our school site are lunch clubs. We try to make sure that we're inclusive to all. We have an equity club. We have a mindful art club, which is really fun. The kids get to come meet with us counselors, get to know us, build rapport with us. It's open to all students. We get to work on art projects together, so that's great. Another thing we have at our school are 4-yard duties, which has been amazing on our school site. They help us with drop off, pick up. They supervise at recess and lunch, and they help pull kids to work on different needs that they may have with academics, which is during our WIN program, which I'm sure our principal would go more into depth with. We also have PE coaches, which are amazing. They really keep our kids engaged on the playground. They do different things with them, different enrichment things. They play soccer, football, basketball, all the things. And it's a great opportunity for students to connect with different adults on campus outside of their teachers and outside of us counselors. They get to develop more relationships with more adults. So that's been amazing. So in addition, we have a makerspace lunch club, another place where students get to be creative and build things that are of their interest and explore more of their creativity, which has been awesome for our kiddos. So as far as tier 2 at Henry Ford, one of the things that we really are mindful of is collecting data. And we analyze referrals by looking at different demographic information. We really try to pay attention to what day of the week referrals are coming in, the time of the day, the location where they're happening, the students involved, and the reasons for the referrals. And our reason for doing that is to make sure that we are implementing different services and having more supports on campus to meet the students' needs. For example, one of the things that we noticed through our data is that we were having more conflicts on the yard. So because of that, we hired more yard duties and we did more organized games to make sure that our students were engaging in more activities. And we also, with our students in terms of PBIS, our students who are working on achieving a behavioral goal, we have daily check-in and check-out with them. And they get to select their mentor, in which that mentor meets with them daily in the morning and in the afternoon to talk about what goals they'll be working on and what supports they need to accomplish those goals. At our school site in tier 2, we have small group counseling and one-on-one counseling. Currently at Henry Ford, we have about 25 students in group and 31 students in individual counseling. We have one full-time counselor, which is me, and we have a part-time, 2 part-time counselors as well, which has been really beneficial to our campus. Another thing we do, like many school sites, is we have SST meetings with parents, and the goal of our SST meetings is to collaborate with parents and try to figure out how we can support their students in their academic, social, emotional development. So it's really a time to meet with parents and collaborate on what we can do as a team to make sure that student is learning and developing. Another thing we are so lucky to have on our campus is a behaviorist who comes 2 times a week. And she helps us with students who have strong behaviors. She helps us develop BIPs. She checks in with teachers frequently. She observes the classrooms and makes changes as needed, which has been beneficial to our campus. And we also have an ESS counselor who's a part of our tier 2 services, and she works with our IEP kiddos. So we're really lucky to have that. In terms of tier 3, something that we haven't had to use as much on our campus this year is called CLEAR. It's an alternative to suspension, and it's a series of meetings where parents come with their children, and it's focused on communicating, healing, and building relationships. So some strategies that we've noticed on our campus that appear to be helping us reach our goal is our mindful minute that I talked about earlier. So thrilling, I know. We also have consistent school-wide expectations, which I also mentioned earlier, which we really like to reinforce in our students. And data collection, so exciting. We also really like to interpret data and make sure that we are, putting interventions in place that match the data that we are seeing. And some things that I had mentioned earlier that we have done is having extra yard duties based on the data that we've collected, and more organized recesses. where we have specific areas on our playground where students, there's a yard duty, like there's a yard duty who watches the basketball team playing. We also have a yard duty on the playground watching those kids out there. So we really try to make sure that we've got a yard duty in each area to lessen the amount of referrals that we're receiving and to make sure we have an eye on our students all over the place on the playground. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we do Project Cornerstone and counselor-led SELs, which has been really helpful this year. We've been really trying to ramp that up in comparison to other years. And our lunch clubs have been super beneficial because us as counselors, we get to know more students on a school-wide basis as opposed to just the students who are on our caseload. So that's been really amazing to have this year as well. Another thing that our data collection has led to is us learning from our students what they want and what they need on our campus for us to better support them. One of the things that we implemented on a district-wide level, as you guys know, we had a mental health survey that we had sent out. And at Henry Ford specifically, us counselors realized that we needed more information in order to better serve our students. So we sent it out a second survey, and Principal Kanafa, I believe, will be going more in depth on that survey. But we learned a lot of beneficial things from it, and it was good to hear our student voice. And one of the things that came out of it, or one of the things that we learned from our data collection in the counseling program, is that 100% of our students on our campus have received Tier 1 intervention, which is amazing. And we also have 35% of all of our students on our campus who've received a check-in, group, or crisis intervention. And this is just from the first semester on our campus. After we analyze the second semester of data, I'm sure that will likely increase tremendously. So that's been good to hear that our services are really being utilized school-wide. And in terms of how do we know that the things we are doing is working? Well, we've seen a significant reduction in the number of disciplinary referrals, which is always good to hear. And we've also seen that students are feeling more safe to be on our campus. And as you guys know, with the climate that we are in, that is really good to hear. And we work really hard as a staff to make sure that students are comfortable and safe on our campus and feel welcomed. And finally, some strategies that could use improvement. Yes, we do have one in particular that we've thought about on our campus, and that's PBIS check-in, check-out. So while it is beneficial to have, we've kind of realized that it's not being implemented to its fullest capacity. We have currently the accountability is on the students. Sometimes students are late or they leave early. And so we want to make sure that we are streamlining the process, and we would like to put next year somebody in charge of PBIS to make sure that it's happening on a more regular basis. So we're hoping to have more oversight. And we're hoping to have somebody check in with every student who has a PBIS plan every Monday morning, and then have somebody check out with them every Friday afternoon to discuss their progress and what supports they need to achieve their goal gradually. So thank you for listening. Oh, Nicole is going to present next.
Thank you. I'm Nicole Crawford. I'm the assistant principal at Henry Ford. And I'm going to focus on the chronic absenteeism. This is definitely an area that we need to focus on and continue to focus on moving forward. So I'll talk now about some of the strategies we've implemented this year, and also tell you what we would like to do for next year. So first off, we do a very positive school climate. So we have lots of activities that we want the kids to join in on when they're at school. So they need to be there to be part of our monthly Fun Fridays, which As of now, they are for the students who have good attendance, perfect attendance. And so we're encouraging them to come to school so they can participate in Fun Friday. Fun Friday is just kind of like an extra recess, but we bring out things that are not normally at recess. So like blocks and chalk and parachutes and music. And so it's something that we want kids to feel like they want to be a part of. In addition to that, we have the lunch clubs that Mary Ann spoke about, and things like student council. We have reps from our 3rd through 5th grade, and they need to be held accountable to support the younger grades because they are the representatives for them as well. So having attendance to those meetings are important. We also give opportunities for green team, which helps with our composting and recycling at lunchtime. We have equity club, lots of assemblies, and also positive staff interactions and relationships. Those are really important, as we know. Secondly, we have lots of enrichment throughout the day. As you know, we have library, music for minors. We have a gardener right now who comes in and does classes with our students. Art and Action, Project Cornerstone, lots of SEL lessons, field trips that are engaging and kids are excited about, assemblies, and classroom presentations. This is something that I will discuss a little bit later, but we're really excited about our after school enrichment. This was something that our parents asked for last year, and we definitely worked really hard at getting this implemented. So as the school year went on, these classes we were able to get supplemented for free. So some classes are vendors. So things like our coding and chess and Lego and basketball and cooking, but also our staff has really stepped up and has offered their time. And they are also doing activities after school to help with the enrichment. And so they're running things like makerspace, handwriting, crocheting, art, and lots of other things, in addition to tutoring and homework club. So a lot of our students were having trouble getting their homework done at home. So homework club with one of the teachers. One thing I wanted to point out about Makerspace, which is really cool, is that they're making right now with the Makerspace materials games to play at our pasta dinner, which is one of our big annual events. So that's pretty exciting to see those come out, and their games that they've created that are interactive. Also, we had Girls on the Run run by 2 teachers. So we had 13 girls run a 5K, a 5K, and a few staff members as well. And if you're not familiar with Girls on the Run, it is just changing mindsets in girls that they can do anything and build confidence. And so that was a really interesting club to have. And actually, I didn't have it on here, but we have an entrepreneur class that's being run at our school by one of our staff members. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a little craft fair on our front lawn to have these companies that were created during the entrepreneurship class sell their goods. So that's pretty cool. So in addition to that, we have something called Circle Up, who Jennifer brought in from her last district. And it's all set on equity and bringing out your implicit and explicit biases. And I think one example of kind of like a very eye-opening experience at a recent training, she showed us a picture of a rose and a dandelion. And 2 of those 2 flowers give you a really like clear feeling, right? A rose is like beautiful and a sign of love, where a dandelion's kind of like considered a weed or something we don't want in our lawn. And so that is an example of something that we just have learned growing up, right? And why? They're both a beautiful flower, right? But for some reason, we know that to be a pesky weed. So a lot of those biases we are finding that we don't mean to, but they are trickling into our classrooms. And so this Circle Up program is really kind of opening our minds to kind of think and consider those things. Sorry. Okay. I told about the monthly assemblies to celebrate perfect attendance. And we have regular communication with the parents through Class Dojo. and just telling them the importance of coming to school. And then we offer our Reach and Catalyst Kids, our before and after school programs, which are impacted, but we do have those offerings, and we can definitely be an area where we could get some more. If we could get some more teachers there, we have space to hold more children. Tier 2, the MTSS coordinator and myself work together to, Peggy does most of it, look through the list of our chronic absentee kids and really try to figure out what the issue is. So lots of phone calls and supports in how to get the students to school. Sometimes it's something really simple and a miscommunication, which we try to clear up. And then there are some more complex issues that we'll speak about later. And then we also do SST meetings for chronic absences. And our tier 3, as we need to escalate, is the SARB system, which brings all parts of the community in to kind of re-engage the family into coming back to school and the importance of coming to school and not missing it. So what's working? So I believe the district protocol and kind of monitoring the absences has helped streamline the process. I feel like we had a clear, like, at this point, you do this. And that was really helpful for me as a new admin to kind of know the process of how that system works. So I appreciated that. How do I know it's working? Although we are still having an issue, I feel like kids want to be at school, and we are encouraging families, you know, if there's no fever and no vomiting, like, send your kid. Because I think we're kind of adjusting from that COVID where, oh, they have a sniffle, we keep them home. We're kind of saying, if they're okay, like, send them to school. Don't send them with a fever, but send them to school if they're just got a sniffle. So just kind of communicating and, you know, keeping that communication open. To speak of something that's not working so great for us is the truancy letters. They tend to just, parents tend to get angry when they get them because they get sent them maybe if there's 5 absences and maybe that's a vacation that they took or something. So they feel irritated by the language. And so we're hoping maybe we could work together to maybe soften the language and make it a little delivery a little bit different. And considering changing, this is important because we do want to make a difference. As you know, I am stepping down from Henry Ford. I'll be doing more of my induction position next year. So the new AP that does come in, the plan is to have him or her focused a day on attendance and trying to kind of get this nipped in the bud and like get people back at school. So that is that. Our goal 2, I'm going to speak about as well, is around our English language learners and our LPAC. So speaking of our numbers, so you'll see this may look different than what you looked at earlier. So I just wanted to point that out, that we did learn that we had an error in the way that it was reported. So these are the new numbers. So our reclassification in spring of last year was 24, and our target is for next year 30. And for our students with 5 years, this year was 20, and we hope it's going to be 30. For our tier 1, thank you. We are using the NUA, the National Urban Alliance, and integrated ELD to support our students who are language learners. I've seen this in action. The National Urban Alliance does some sample lessons in classrooms, and they have these great mind maps. I don't even know if that's the way to call them, mind maps. Yeah. Where kids have learned the mind maps, know how to access them to put their ideas down. And it's really a great way for all students to have an entry point and engage with the lesson that the teacher is giving. Also, in addition, we are having targeted ELD on a daily basis. This year, we hired an ELD teacher who works full-time with students who are considered the littles, the long-term English learners, and has, you know, her own classroom where the kids go on a daily basis to meet with her and get instruction. In addition to that, some classrooms are also, most classrooms are doing daily small group EL rotations or some sort of small group lessons. And then we have our win time, which Jennifer will speak about in a minute. But this is a time where all students are getting something they need. And during that time, the EL students are also getting additional time with phonics, focusing in on that aspect of it. Our tier 2, we provide a subscription to Imagine Learning. And we have this year 39 newcomers. So we had a need for someone to work with those students. And so we have a newcomer teacher who comes and collaborates with our ELD teacher and develop or build on the curriculum that the teachers providing. And tier 3 is our SST meetings to figure out, is there something else that's going on that's not letting this child learn in the same way that their peers are learning. So we go to the SST meeting if needed. And then what works? So the level targeting grouping for WIN, newcomers in the upper grades are being taught how to read in addition to receiving ELD. So again, focusing on the phonics during their WIN time. And the ELD, hiring the ELD teacher brings down the class size for the teachers and ensures that students are receiving ELD every day and focusing on those students. How do we know? Well, we collect a lot of data and we look at that data quite often and look forward also to see how our LPAC scores went this year, because I really feel it feels promising. What strategies are not working? The benchmark ELD program is not working for us. So we're hopeful for something to supplement that or to replace it. And so that kind of leads into what we are considering to change is a strong ELD program that is consistent across all the grade levels. So the student understands the expectations of the program and the teachers feel like it builds on one another.
All right, goal 3 is focused on, instruction. And as you know, the goal is for students to improve at least 1 grade level, grow 1 year, and students who are below grade level to make a 1.5 years worth of growth. Our data points are, we have 2 that we use, iReady, which is here. And we just got our spring. So wait, the cap's not, we go to the next one. On our CAS one, our goal is 45% and our iReady scores right now are 45. So we look like we're on target to hit that. And our math overall, we're at 40% now. So, and that was we still had like another, 12 weeks. So we'll be there, if not higher. All right. So what are we doing? First of all, we have just an incredible staff that work hard all day, every day to meet their needs of the students. Whenever you walk in a classroom, you're going to see small group instruction. They're always differentiating. They're using Engage New York and benchmarks. We have consistent curriculum throughout the grade levels. We partnered with NUA last year, and this year, every single teacher is participating. So that's very exciting. I think you all know what NUA is, right? So I won't elaborate. But the feedback has been very positive. Just having real time, someone coming in your room, working with your students, modeling different strategies is so much better than going to a workshop where you learn all these great things, but then you go back and you just do what you did before. Not that they do that, but our math scores, we met to discuss, what can we do? And so we realized everyone was doing about 60 minutes a day. So people decided to increase their instruction time. So 75 to 90 minutes. Thanks to our reading recovery teacher, she spent a lot of time doing research on research-based interventions programs and found Haggerty. And there are these mini lessons that supplement benchmark with phonics. And so all our K through 2nd grade teachers doing those. They have like rhyming games and things the kids really like. With NUA, I forgot to mention, comes grade level planning. tier 2, what we're very excited about, you keep hearing win, 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 but it's been a big rollout for us. Basically, every student who's below grade level is receiving 30 minutes of intervention 3 times a week. And so there's a block for K, a block for first, second, a block for third through fifth. And it's like all hands on deck during that time. Anyone who's not an instruction classroom teacher is working with students. The administration, the librarian, even our yard duties. And you think like, oh, how can they teach? They're not scripted, but we have a scripted, for non-credentialed staff, use a research-based scripted program. So they just follow this and it's pretty cool. So for kindergarten, there's 6 small groups a day. First through second, we have 12 small groups, and third through fifth, we have about 14 small groups. So our RSP teachers, our aides, everyone is working with it. So altogether, about 130 students are pulled during WIN. And there's a lot of advantage to this. One is the students who aren't being pulled are our students who are on grade level, close to grade level. And so it gives there's smaller class sizes now too. So it gives the teacher an opportunity to go deeper with the students on the standards. And the students who are being pulled are not missing any curriculum, because normally resource teachers will pull kids throughout the day, so they're missing class. And everyone goes right after lunch. So if you come out, like all the teachers emerge and the kids all go off with the new teachers. So no one feels different or being called out of class. Hey, come with me. So that is nice. And we progress monitor every 6 to 8 weeks, which I'll get into in the how do we know it's working. So in addition to that, we have a lot of other support. We have reading partners, Healthy Cities. We have 2-time reading intervention teachers. We offer after-school homework club and after-school tutoring. So for our tier 3, because we have these interventions in place and the data, when we come to our SST meetings, we can make informed decisions because we've been monitoring their progress. Next one. So what is working? NUA, having time to plan. The teachers here are always planning. They come in before school, after school, weekends. We have PE Plus, so they have release time to plan twice a week. And WIN, obviously. So how do we know it's working? Like I mentioned, we assess the kids every 6 to 8 weeks, and 95% of our students make at least 1 level growth. Right now we're using F&P, but we also have the programs we're using have embedded progress monitoring. So it levels the kids, and then we regroup the kids based on the data. We also know it's working because of our iReady data. We had a 23% increase of students who moved to grade level in both language arts and math. Attendance is one of the things that's not helping our situation. We have a lot of chronically absent students. And, if you think about it, how can you move a kid to make a year progress if they're missing a month of school? So it's tough. It's a big challenge because a lot of school is being missed. So we know that is an issue, and it's something, as Nicole mentioned, we're working on. What are we considering changing? Ideally, it'd be nice to have a program district-wide. And it sounds like there is actually the EL3 group that's working on that anyway. So that's being done. And how do we gather data from Class Dojo and our meetings? And I'm not going to really talk about that one now because it comes up later under parent voice. All right. Pulls back up the one. Yep.
All right. So if you go to the next slide. So I get to talk about the fun things. First off, I wanted to give a huge thank you to our extremely active and supportive families at Henry Ford. As you know, we had a merge of 2 schools and right around COVID. So it was kind of a bad timing, but I really feel like this year we made growth in communicating with our families, and it feels really, really good. It feels like a safe place and families want to be there. So I really want to give a shout out to all the supportive families in our district or at our school. And obviously a huge shout out to our PTA. They are incredible. In order to do any of these things that you see up here, our PTA, we couldn't do it without our PTA. A lot of things I spoke about earlier because I got really excited and I just moved on. So I told you about a lot of these things already, but I did want to point out that, you know, providing these engaging opportunities for our students was something that our school really asked for. And so we answered it. And I feel like a lot of our families want to stay at Henry Ford, and these types of things are motivating them to stay. That's what we want. Is there anything that I didn't mention on that list? Sorry, I'm just reading it through. I think I mentioned everything. So there's some fun pictures to look at of all those clubs.
Right, I'm back. Student voice. So the main goal is to build trust with our students so that they feel comfortable coming to us if there's a problem or an issue. So like I think Marianne was mentioning, we have tons of people in the yard as well. You know, the hired people, Nicole and I are out there, the teachers are out there. We're just always taking every opportunity we can to build relationships. Our PE teachers teach our after school program so that they really get to know the kids and they're these giant men with these little children, and they're great. We did our panorama survey and some of our areas were a little low, so we wanted to know why. So we dug deeper and asked how we can make them feel more comfortable. And so you can see some of the results. Some are a little more realistic than other ones. But we took the time at a staff meeting to look at them because what we think maybe we're showing respect and caring, it looks different to them. So really understanding what it looks like to them so we can make them feel respected and safe. And our last page is parent outreach. As Nicole mentioned, we are so fortunate to have such an involved community. It's like some of these parents, I think, have a second full-time job at Henry Ford. Any point in the day, there's someone doing a lesson in art and action or Project Cornerstone or hosting Makerspace. And we've got a lot of events at night that we've tried to make free entry. So everyone is part of it. Our winter concert, we have a Valentine's dance, fall festival. We have our first ever variety show tomorrow night, if you're interested in seeing some really cool talent. And it's all parent run. Like this variety show, I just have to show up. It's amazing. Another thing that the PTA does that is really helpful is for communication is they gather information from everywhere, from Dr. Baker's newsletter, my newsletters, our calendar, and they send out a weekly update. And it's just super thorough and organized. I find myself going there to look for what's going on sometimes. So it's very helpful. Class Dojo, something we rolled out last year because communication was a concern. So basically every classroom has their own account and the teachers can email or send out to the whole class or to individuals. And then I can send out to the whole school or individuals. And I just put an example up there. So if I post something, I can see how many people have viewed it, and you get some likes sometimes. That's kind of fun. And then it can translate to any language. And then there's also a place for comments, and people can see the comments. So it's a place for people to voice. These are all positive comments that I chose this time, and they're not always, but that's good. It's feedback. So it's a place for people that can just say what comments. And it's super easy to communicate. I get text through that. It's easier than trying to find my email address on the website. So it's a very easy way to communicate. So that's been working really well. And that is all. That was it. Oh, now I have to tell you what I need. All right. I kind of mentioned already our need for a research-based intervention program, that consistent one. Our newcomers, it's hard for the classroom teachers. We love having our newcomers, but the gap is so high that first few months. They come in and don't speak English, and you're teaching 5th grade curriculum. So it's very challenging. So any supports we can get for our newcomers would be great, including a strong ELD program, which is also in the works from what I understand. support for full implementation of NUA. Money, money, money. No, if possible. And the last thing, one thing about attendance. So our kids that live in the Haas neighborhood, the bus is supposed to end, but they still live in the Haas boundaries. So I'm hoping we can continue having that bus going because it was supposed to fade out next year. And this is sort of a bigger issue, but we have students that come throughout the school year and say they're in second grade in Henry Ford, there's no space. So they get sent to Clifford, but they don't have a car. So they can't get to Clifford, or Clifford will get a student in third grade. They don't have space. They come to Henry Ford. And so that's really impacting attendance. So I don't know the answer, like a shuttle or save spots for cases like this at home schools. I'm not sure what the answer is, but it's definitely something I think that would help with our attendance issue. So that's officially it.
Thank you for the presentation, and I will go ahead and open it up to my colleagues to make their questions.
Thanks, Jennifer, Nicole, Marianne, for the presentation on Henry Ford. You have done it. You've brought us to the final school report. It's a momentous night, but I mean, it's, I don't think that these were priority order, or at least I don't know of any ordering it was there, but it's important to bring it in and sort of get the reinforcement for us to be able to hear it, but also just to hear your perspective on how things are going at the school. So I've found all of these really, really valuable, yours included. And I really appreciate the work that goes into the presentation, having to come here, spend a late evening with us, but really everything that backs behind it. On your asks, I had a couple questions. You actually answered the one about the space for kids at homeschool, because I didn't understand what that meant, but that's actually an interesting problem that probably could be looked at. We heard about the Haas bus before from Roosevelt as well. So clearly that's a need that being phased out, but thanks for reinforcing it, even though we had heard it before. Earlier, I had a question about what does support for full implementation of NUA look like? Because I know earlier there was a question of all the
Money.
Of course. But like, what does it do? Because I thought you had said that all the teachers were already getting training in their class, and participating in NUA. Is it just continuing to do that for more years?
Yeah, because the next stage is co-teaching with the teachers. So there's a lot, we still have, we started it, but we have a long way to go still through their process.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that makes sense. The other thing I'm going to take away from this is that I think I need a mindful minute in the morning. I'll have to. Yeah, I think I'll have to bake that into my regular routine. When you were talking about attendance and sort of making the environment, bringing kids to be able to want them to come to school and everything, it kind of reminded me of Lizette's summary of the panorama survey from the student voice of like, hey, I'm willing to come to school if I feel like I belong there. And I could hear that that's a focus area there, really from all of our school sites across all the reports. But, again, as we get to hear those threads through all the presentations, it's nice to see those reinforcements and how all that stuff works. So thank you.
Okay. Funny, different nights we do it different ways. Thank you so much. I really appreciated the presentation. And I wanted to give a shout out to all the teachers and staff from Henry Ford who are here. So great to have, we love having people come in person. So come anytime, but I know usually you don't want to be at a board meeting, so that's fine. Lots of things stood out for me, including the mindful minute. And I just wanted to mention that I just got back from, I'm going to talk about this at the board report, but I just got back from something called the Progress Seminar, where a lot of folks from San Mateo, including business and nonprofit and electeds and, city council, school board members come together. And it's a learning opportunity, networking opportunity. And one of the big things that they talked about was they're calling it heart intelligence, but it really was about breathing techniques. It was very much about mindfulness. And it was interesting because they're talking about they're taking it to the UN to try to get it worldwide. But specifically for San Mateo County, Nancy McGee was there and very excited about it, and she'll be talking to the superintendents. But I think she's going to try to bring in some additional training to try to get it to more students and staff. Just that idea of just a minute of just, I mean, it is amazing. So I'm glad you called that out. And I think that's a best practice that we could think about at some other school sites, because I know teachers and staff have done it in different ways over the years. I've kind of watched it. We've had some that have embraced it and they're doing it every day, and then some that aren't doing it at all. But I really am glad you called that out, because I think that is something for just self-regulation. I know I personally use it on a regular basis when I'm kind of upset or nervous or anxious. You know, if you just do that breathing, it really helps. So enough said on that, but I just wanted to call that out, that you know, people are really starting to talk about that. I love that you're using data to figure out the behavior interventions that are needed. And then, you know, you gave the example of recess and yard duty. That's really great, because I think we use data. We've been historically using data on academics, but it sounds like you're really digging in and using it on behaviors as well. And maybe other schools are doing that, but they haven't called it out in the same way. So that's great. NUA, we have heard from pretty much every school that has NUA how awesome it is, and we need to do more. So I know we'll be talking about that from a budget standpoint and staffing standpoint. And then the ELD, I just wanted to also say we're hearing that from every school, and we know that we need to do better. And I know there's some work in progress to really try to get a better curriculum and a better process around that. The transportation issue is another one that we heard as well. So thank you for that. And Lupe, I see you're still here, and I saw one thing that I didn't mention that I really want to. So I just, sorry to bring it up in Henry Ford, but you know, one of the things, and I think you guys talked about it too, but just this whole idea of kind of culturally and personally relevant curriculum, and the idea of ethnic studies, and really kind of meeting the students and the families where they're at. You know, you called that out, and I don't know that any of us made a comment of that, but I'm sure we were all like, yes, yes. And I know that Henry Ford, I mean, you were talking about that with your newcomers and things like that. So again, I think that's something we're hearing and we want to do more of. And I know that Liz and our staff development team are thinking about that. So anyway, Lupe, thank you for calling that out as well. So anyway, thank you, Henry Ford. Really loved having and hearing from you. And I love coming out to your site, of course. And that's it.
Super cool presentation. Thank you so much for the work you do. And thank you, teachers, for staying up late with us. Really appreciate it. Love seeing the 0% suspension targets. I'm wondering if you'd spend like 30 seconds educating me on CLEAR with a K, apparently, because like I was not able to find out that much about it.
So I learned it when I was back at McKinley. It's great for middle school, but basically you need at least 5 families. So instead of getting suspended, they come to these evening courses. The first half is the kids with the parents learning iMessages and all that. The second half is someone's with the kids, and then parenting, talking about support for parents. It's almost like a therapy group, you know. In the end, the kids write a letter to their parents and they cry. It's really, really incredible program. So if any of the middle schools are interested, I'm happy to facilitate one.
That was going to be my next question, because it seems like this is working. And for stuff that schools are trying that seems like a one-off that's working, I want to see if we can copy paste that other places. So that would be great. I just want to capture that. Let's go infect some other schools with that. Love seeing the celebrations for high attendance. On truancy letters, would love to continue the dialogue offline. It seems like there's some interesting research that shows that very short letters using very plain language have effectiveness versus using more flowery and academic language. Message clearly received on benchmark ELD. We have our proverbial homework to do to go and find better ELD curriculum. So thank you. And awesome work on the Haggerty phonics supplementation. That seems like very well data supported, makes a big difference. So would also love to see that more broadly adopted in our district to go and help with that. I loved seeing candid feedback from kids on page 19, not just cherry picking like my school is great, everything is wonderful, but like I believe the feedback, and it's more helpful when we can see some of the raw data. So thank you for sharing that. I just want to say one of the things that I've been doing through all of these SIPSA presentations is pulling out the Delta data for looking at how each school is advancing their students in English and in math. And you are actually one of the very highest performing schools in the whole district on your ability to move the needle for your students. So thank you for the hard work in that. Would love to see, is there peer tutoring that you guys are doing for your English language learners?
Teachers are doing it, but. It's not school-wide yet, no.
Okay, so just it's something that copy pasting from other schools, having peers teach peers can be very effective. Yes, students teaching
Oh,
students
yes,
for English.
yes, we do.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
fantastic, wonderful. Yeah, and the other questions were answered by the board. So amazing, great work. Thank you.
Hey Mustangs, thanks for being here. I will say Henry Ford always has such a great turnout of staff. So thank you guys all. I know it's been a long day. Thank you, everyone. And we have some online too. So I want to acknowledge those that are calling in tonight. Thank you for your presentation, sticking out and being number 12. We appreciate it. My colleagues have asked all the questions I had, but I'm very happy to hear about anyway. Thank you to all the staff that have kind of embraced that and are implementing it. I didn't realize that everyone was doing it. I thought it was still just 3rd through 5th. So happy to see that. Let's see. Oh, on the truancy letter. I just want to agree with you on that. I don't know. I don't know if I know it's a cookie cutter letter. I know it goes to everybody that's missing. My son, a couple of years ago, missed the first 5 days of school. He had a fever of 104.6 every day. And I didn't send him to school and I got a letter and it wasn't very nice. And I went, well, I shouldn't be sending him. Why am I getting this letter? So yeah, there's something we can do about that. I agree. Let's see. The PE Plus continues to be very popular with the students. And I know that takes some investment from the PTA too. So I'm happy to see that continues. I hear the football games during recess are really great and during lunch. I hear about those every day. And let's see. Oh, with the win, I'm happy to see that students aren't being singled out and they're not feeling like they're, behind or whatever. I think it wasn't mentioned. WIN stands for what I need. Okay. Yeah. And that nobody's missing curriculum. They're not getting pulled out of the important stuff. I had a note. Jennifer, I just wanted to say, when you were hired as principal, I know one of the things that was really important was communication and building that communication with the families and the parents. And you've done a really fantastic job. Your monthly newsletters, the class dojo, I mean, between you and Nicole, and there's a couple other people that are posting all the time. My phone's like, class dojo, class dojo, class dojo. So you've done a great job communicating. I've been at Henry Ford for 10 years. Is that right, Mrs. Barstad? And this is our last year. I can't believe we have 5 weeks left of being we'll always be Mustangs. And I just want to say, I've seen so much growth in the school with the staff and with the families and with the administration and just the activities and the clubs and the celebrations and all that. It's just been phenomenal to see. So thank you for everybody's work on all of that. So thanks.
I guess, thank you. And my question to you guys is, what is Imagine Learning? If you guys can elaborate a little bit more on that.
So it is the district used to pay for it, but it's very expensive and not everyone was using it. So we're just doing it individually, but it's a what is it called? Adaptive program that teaches English. So kids can log on and do that independently. Also has a math program and it can go for any language. So
okay, great. And then I do want to point out, thank you guys for the presentation, but I do want to give a shout out to Lisette because I love your enthusiasm. And I think it is Lisette, right? Marianne. I'm sorry.
She's amazing.
Okay. So I love your enthusiasm, and obviously as a counselor, I'm sure kids look forward to seeing you, and I'm assuming the other ones too. We do have great counselors and, mental health clinicians all over, but I feel that as a kid, they want to go to you because you're that person. The way you presented, when you first started talking, so I just want to give you kudos for that. And of course, NUA, I couldn't be any more happy, just like all of us. I won't go into details and, you know, kudos to the teachers for stepping in, doing the work, and I'm sure has made your jobs better, because that's what I had heard as well from other school sites. And then just not in a bad way, but a little bit of a personal concern when you talk about obviously the newcomers. And so when they get pulled out of class, and I may be mistaken, right? But are there the ones that get pulled out and then the other kids stay in the classroom with their regular teacher? Or did I misunderstand?
No, we have a ELD period. So they circle then, all the kids of the grade level circle. So we have our ELD teacher working with our long-term, just because she's got the expertise. We really want to move those kids, but they're all leveled by group.
Okay.
And then during WIN, they get reading intervention because fifth grade teachers don't teach phonics, right? So they get both, but they're never pulled. They're not missing any curriculum.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then is it during the WIN where when you talked about some of the kids when, and you mentioned some of them were even like with your duties, which I understand you said that they read a script. And I guess my only concern, and I wanted to bring that up just for clarification as well. Because just like Lupe mentioned earlier, they want to get teachers that, know their stuff, and not to say that the other teachers don't know their stuff, but I'm just curious to know if, and obviously you guys are the educators, that if you're pulling the kids to be with the yard duty or with someone else that is reading a script, and you're leaving the higher achieving kids in the classroom that are already doing well. So again, I just wanted to bring it up for clarification,
Yeah, I know it sounds like, but if you see the program, it's scripted, but it's research based, and it's anyone can teach it. So it's not, we want to use the teacher for their expertise, but the kids need the phonics. So it'll be like A, and then they introduce M, and then they blend it. And then they introduce the next letter, and they keep repeating, and it builds on it. And so a fifth grade teacher sitting and pulling kids to teach the M sound is not valuable for anyone, right? So that is why we have all hands on deck and other staff, certificated staff helping with that.
Thank you. And that's it for me. Thank you again.
Number one, thank you so much. Great job. So Amy, when I come visit, I'll get the mindful minute. What? As long as I can don't have to worry about that traffic. Have to get that traffic. What? I always park behind Jennifer anyway when I visit. So great. That was great to hear. I am glad you brought WIN, and I know you had some concerns, Cecilia, but WIN is a program that many years ago, it was Kennedy.
Can I just say, I brought it to Kennedy too.
Oh, okay. I think okay. You were there with
A group of teachers, and I went and investigated other schools, and that's how they started. I think they're still doing it, right?
No, when Warren left, it kind of dissipated, and it was sad. And at that time, it was a couple superintendents ago, then and didn't move it forward with the next principal that came in. And Warren was a little concerned because it floundered and went away. But the progress that we saw, especially with our newcomer kids, was amazing. So I know you had some concerns, but what we saw then and how kids were being supported was really great. So when I saw that you brought it back, because I know you used it when you were in Jefferson, and the increases that occurred there, I'm seeing that's happening here. It's something that I think, Liz, maybe we should kind of look at a bit.
Maybe years ago, we called it take time, the targeted instructional time.
Right.
That was the intent, was that kids would be regrouped during the day.
Right. And what you do is you assess. That's what I really like. You assess like every 6 weeks, and then you determine, hey, maybe they don't need to go anymore, or they do go, but they go to a different grouping. So it was really good for all kids. We did something similar when I was at Hoover, because it was at the time when we were plentiful with teachers, and teachers wanted to work half days. So I could get teachers to come on and work for half days, and we could lower our reading times, lower the classes to like 10 to 15 kids per teacher, and then assess every 6 weeks. Amazing. So I'm glad you're doing that. I really am. The other piece was, thanks for asking for the definition unclear. I didn't know what that was either, but that's great. That's something that we should pick up, and maybe you can share with other principals at a principals meeting. That would be wonderful. And circle up. You brought that back. Good for you. I'm glad to see that. I know there were, let me think of this carefully. There were questions and concerns, prior to you coming to Henry Ford, and we know we needed something different. And I see some nods. We needed something different. And I was really glad that you took the opportunity to leave Jefferson Elementary School District and come to us. Caught you that night when you were at graduation and go, did you know we have an opening? Don't tell Bernie, but we have an opening. So thank you very much for coming back to Henry Ford. And thank you also for, promoting the different items that you shared with us tonight. I'm really glad you did. Nicole, thank you for all your assistance. And now that you'll be going on to more induction time, but I'm sure you will be finding someone who will, be there and help you well. I'm sure that's already in the process. And Michelle, thank you so much for being our counselor. Marianne, why did I put Michelle? Well, you've gotten 3 names. You got Lisette, Michelle, Marianne. I wrote down Michelle. I'll remember the mindful minute, and I'm going to be in Amy's class to experience it. Thank you so much.
I want to say,
Wait.
One thing. I just want to say, Marianne, I do remember your name, but I didn't remember to read my note to you that I wrote down. So just real quick, it's already been said, but your energy is contagious. I've been in meetings for 6 hours at this point, and you started talking and I was like, I'm up, let's go. So thank you for bringing that energy tonight.
Yeah. Amen. We need
You don't have to stay. We have more of a meeting, so you're welcome to go home and rest and ready for tomorrow. Thank you. Right.
So we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Yep. She's ready.
You just have to press a button.
There you go. Are we ready to listen to the wonderful mental health clinicians?
All right.
I want to say they did a great, it was Anna Paula, and it was Michelle Griffith who presented this information, and you were there at the Superintendent's Advisory Council, and it went really well.
Yeah, and I am going to focus more on the data piece here.
That's what I thought. That's what you should do. Definitely.
So kind of before I actually get started into counseling data, a little bit of, my name is Ana Paula Garay. I am the lead mental health counselor. This is the first year that this position has existed. So the first year that I'm filling this role. And it's very, very exciting. We have a fantastic mental health team, just really, really qualified, competent counselors at our school sites. And before I kind of go into this, I know in March we received the Stanford Community Partnership Award. Dr. Baker was there. Janet joined us, Liz Wolf, and Michelle Griffith, and they accidentally gave Dr. Baker a chipped plaque. So now I have an unchipped plaque to pass around. All right, I think I can probably get started. So I'm going to present information that's kind of August through December, so the first half of the year. Kind of once June rolls around over the summer, I'll make sure to compile full year data, and maybe August or September kind of come back and give you the a big year's worth of picture. Also, this is the second year of the mental health counseling program. Last year was the first year we even started trying to gather mental health data. This year we have more than we did last year, so we're still trying to figure out how to collect it, what to collect, what's helpful to know, what's
not helpful to know. So I'll just share what we have so far. So starting off, this year we had some kind of additional budget allocations from rollover LCAP funds in two main categories. One was SEL and one was therapeutic environments. So when it comes to SEL, the county paid for Changing Perspectives, which is an SEL curriculum. Principals could opt into it, kind of their cost. Some schools already had one, like Garfield has a fantastic one. They wanted to keep theirs. So it was just kind of an optional for maybe some that didn't have one already. What we went ahead and did with the additional SEL funds is using the Changing Perspective curriculum. They had a fantastic book list, and they had them separated by pre-K, K-2, 3-5, and 6-8. And they were each in 5 different categories, like responsible decision-making, friendship skills. And so what we went ahead and did is we bought essentially the SEL library for every school site, whether they had the curriculum or not, because the books are still really helpful for a counselor to go in and read in the classroom. Thanks to the curriculum, each book also now has a laminated sheet with discussion questions in each book. So it's really easy for a counselor or a teacher to be like, this is the age group, this is kind of the topic or subject matter, grab and go. So every school, they live with the counselors, not in the library, just to kind of make sure we keep them separate, we can keep track of them, and they're all in one place. A cool down box was also created for each front office and family center. So that was a total of 19 cool down boxes. There were journals, coloring supplies, coloring books, a lot of fidgets. Try to focus on fidgets that didn't make a lot of sounds for our front offices. And so those were all delivered, and every time I walk into a family center, I just see like an open box and fidgets just kind of pouring out. So that's something that was provided to all of them. And then additionally, we had some leftover money. And so we were able to send some counselors to some trainings that really benefited kind of tier 1 interventions, like peacemakers. We had the counselors from Orion and Adelante attend. So they're kind of bringing that back, and Adelante just started implementing their peacemakers interventions where they're training their 5th graders. They go around and they have walkie-talkies and they're trying to diffuse conflicts on the playground. So we're finding creative ways to kind of infuse tier 1 interventions without being like, tell me about your feelings, and have it be a little more personable. And then when it comes to therapy environments, I have some pictures to kind of show you what the therapeutic rooms in our schools look like. So we've got some MIT and Roy Cloud, specifically a Roy Cloud little tent. It works really well with the little ones that maybe need a little cool down space that helps them feel a little more confined. It's got some pillows and some blankets, and MIT has some nice flex seating for our middle school kids. Henry Ford and Roosevelt have larger rooms, so they're able to kind of have more comfy seating available. Roosevelt's counselor was given an entire classroom this year. So the kids really, really love that space. It's really great for running groups. Not even pictured on the left side of that is like a whole reading nook. So that space is really welcoming. We've got Clifford and Orion. Again, we kind of saw the space that every counselor was working with and then gave them an appropriate budget so we could kind of spread the funds around in an equitable manner. And then lastly, we have North Star and Hoover. So again, last year we kind of took a look at the spaces we were working with, and because we didn't have these positions before, it was not like we had counseling rooms available. And so it was a lot of desks and tables and chairs. And if you think about it as an adult, if you were going to go talk to a therapist and you were asked to sit at a desk, it doesn't necessarily make you feel comfortable or cozy to open up and be vulnerable. And so these funds really, really make a difference. The kids, every time a kid goes in and the counselor has like a new pillow, especially when they started getting couches, the kids were just thrilled. They like ear to ear grins. We got some good feedback from parents that the kids went and told their parents that their counselor had like a really nice space. So thank you for that additional allocation. It's really been helpful.
Can I just say, having been around for a little while and seen some of the rooms that kids were asked to go into to have a counseling session. And as you said, like nobody would want to go into the room, right? And so just seeing this, it just warms my heart, really. I mean, and I'm sure it's much more inviting. And of course, we have the exuberant Marianne back there who, now has a nice space that she can work out of. Anyway, this is great. Really appreciate it.
Wonderful. All right. So the first kind of set of data I'll share with you is we did a student counseling survey. It's the first one we've done. We sent it out to all 4th through 8th graders. We kind of targeted 4th through 8th grade simply because we wanted them to be able to fill it out independently. We didn't want any pressure from a teacher or a counselor being like, did you get counseling? Did you answer that right? Let me help you fill it out. We provided it in English and Spanish. So our newcomers were able to participate in the survey as well. And then we received over 2,300 responses, which is really, really fantastic. Our Stanford partnership with the Gardner Center came in really handy because they helped analyze all the data so that I didn't spend days doing it. And then I could just kind of look at it and see what it said. So I'll share on the next slide. And then all the results from these, this is the district breakdown. I did provide every school their own breakdown, so they have that information as well. So the first question was, do you know who your counselor is on campus? So, you know, over 3/4 of our students said yes or maybe. Again, we didn't do this last year, but if I had to guess, it would have shown an improvement from last year because we didn't have the counselors and they wouldn't know who they were. And then the next slide kind of shows a breakdown about schools and grade levels. So our highest schools were North Star, Henry Ford, and Roy Cloud. Our lowest schools were Kennedy, MIT, and Hoover. And in terms of a grade level is 6th grade. You'll see this as a trend with some of the other questions. What we learned by administering the survey is that our hypothesis that when a lot of the K-5 kids go to a middle school, those first 2, because we administered this beginning of October, so the kids have been in school for about 2 months, you know, they're told like, we have a counselor and they're in the family center or they're in room 21A. But sometimes just that one-time notification at the beginning of the school year isn't enough, right? So that shows us that maybe we need to make a little bit more of an effort with our 6th graders in our middle schools to really educate them, maybe walk them around, have that be part of like a tour or back to school night or something along those lines where maybe we emphasize this a little bit more with those students. Our second question was, if you wanted to speak with a counselor, do you know where to go to find them? So, and then on the next slide, again, the 6th grade is kind of the dip. Similar schools were high and low, kind of goes hand in hand of like, do you know who your counselor is? If you know who they are, you probably know where they are. So similar trends and probably similar reasons. The third question was, would you feel comfortable asking to meet with a counselor to talk about your feelings? We were really curious about this. And fortunately, a lot of the kids do. The highest schools were Adelante, MIT, and North Star, and the lowest were Kennedy, Henry Ford, and Roy Cloud. And again, it kind of dips in 6th grade. I think, again, because you're meeting a new counselor, especially for those that have to change schools. So you have to build rapport again. Maybe you don't know them. You haven't seen them around as much, so you don't feel as comfortable. And then you see it kind of go up again for 8th grade. The fourth question, we were just curious if, you know, did you see a counselor at school last year? Almost half of our kids said yes. That could have been through a one-on-one, a group, an SEL, a school-wide event. We just kind of wanted to gauge how exposed the students think our counselors are around campus. Interestingly enough, the highest schools were Adelante, Henry Ford, and Orion. And last year, they were some of the schools with the highest amount of SEL, which means that the counselors were going into the classrooms and doing more push-ins. So that lets us know that that really reflects with the students, and the students are more likely to say that they know who their counselor is and that they've seen and met with the counselor as a result of SEL and Tier 1 interventions. And the lower schools were the larger schools, were the schools that maybe have less counseling hours for the number of students. So it's just harder to, you know, get around as well. And then the last question we asked, do you meet with a counselor outside of school? We were just kind of curious how many of our kids have outside therapists, if there was a pattern, if there were specific schools or grade levels. And on the next slide, you'll see there's not too much of a difference. We don't have a lot of our students seeing external providers. And it's honestly really, really difficult. We do work with an organization called Care Solace, which is provided by the county to help us do warm handoffs and referrals. And there's a couple barriers there. We'll do a warm handoff, but the parent still has to answer the phone call from Care Solace. And sometimes that becomes difficult. It's the wrong hours. Maybe they called in offering the wrong language. And then sometimes there's no providers available, or the provider that is available is the next appointment is in 6 weeks. And so, we'll make the appointment, but then you have to remember to show up in 6 weeks. And so we are using the resources available to us. It's just been really hard to make those community connections. We asked 2 kind of open-ended questions. The first one was, what do you think a counselor's job is at your school? We were just curious to see if it's what we think it is. And so a couple that I wanted to highlight, to help control your anger, feelings, and actions, and showing us ways to manage it nicely to not act out. To try to make you let out all of your feelings so you don't feel like you're by yourself, kind of like a bottle of etc. And when you open it, you let the air out, or whatever the bottle has inside, it's all let out. We had some really, really thoughtful, insightful responses, helping students feel like they belong, talking about their feelings. The students really know why we're there, which is really good to see. And then we asked, is there anything that the counselors aren't doing that you would like them to do? There were kind of 3 main buckets in terms of where the responses fell. A lot of kids just asked for more counseling, right? Because sometimes there's wait lists, or the counselor's like, I can't meet with you today, but I'll check in with you tomorrow. A lot of the kids really like the in-classroom SEL lessons, so they want more classroom lessons. So we just had a lot of requests for just more availability of the counselors. The second bucket was academic support. We got a lot of requests for, help with math. So there was a couple responses of like, tell my classmates to turn in their homework so that we don't get in trouble as a class. So that's just, something that came up. It's not something that we can necessarily help with, but it's important to highlight. And then a lot of requests for snacks and events. There was, I think I shared on the Monday night presentation, there was specific requests for In-N-Out. They really felt comfortable answering this question. Henry Ford has buddy benches. So one of their students, wanted additional buddy benches. The last comment about period supplies and bathrooms, I did relay that back to that school's administrator to kind of talk and see how they could address that. So we did get some good follow-up action items from the question. And so that was kind of the survey that we sent out. And the second piece I'll report on is the counseling services themselves. So like, what are we doing with the students? So this is a breakdown of the counseling services we have available at all of our school sites. So in terms of the district mental health counselor, every school has one with the exception of Garfield. Garfield has 2. We partner heavily with One Life. That is new this year. Historically, we've partnered heavily with Star Vista. Last year, we did a little bit more like 50-50 split. And then this year, we went more heavily with One Life based on feedback from administrators and teachers that the One Life partnership was working well and they wanted to pursue that one more. We have help from our CEF at 3 of the 3 Bayside schools. And then the Star Vista hours, we do not pay for. Those are paid for by the county. They are also the ones that select which sites those are at. So that's kind of outside of our control. Kennedy is supposed to have 40 hours from them also, but that position went unfilled until this week. Someone just started that this week, and the Hoover person left and they have a part-time there now. So that column is a little bit changing, but that was what was available at the beginning of the year. In terms of the support services that we offer, we kind of put them in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So tier 1s are check-ins and SEL. So they're really meant to be not super direct, not super specific, kind of reach as many students as possible. Tier 2 is individual and group therapy. And then a tier 3 is a crisis intervention, which is very targeted, very specific, usually a more intense level of service. So in terms of tier 1 with check-ins, so far, as of December, 986 unduplicated students have received a check-in. That's already higher than the entirety of last school year, which is about 980. So by December, we already surpassed last year's amount of students receiving a check-in. Over 1,800 check-ins themselves were provided. So on average, 2 check-ins per student for those that received it. As of December, the counselors had provided over 663 SEL lessons. Here's some like examples of topics: teamwork, kindness, friendship, skills, conflict resolution, lots of lunch bunches. The lunch bunches really range from kinder to 8th grade. They're happening in K5s, they're happening in the middle school. Kennedy reinstated them a couple months ago. So those have been really successful across age groups. When it comes to individual therapy, as of December, 420 students were receiving individual therapy. So this is kind of a breakdown of the referral specifically for individual therapy. The highest two were anxiety and behavior. They are the same highest two from last year. So that's kind of consistently the reason why students are being referred for counseling. Proportionally, behavior has gone down a little bit, I think, because we're trying to get a little more creative at the school side in terms of how we're addressing behavior, that it's not always a mental health need or always a mental health referral. We do have the assistance of some BCBAs this year that we had additional funding for, so that's been helpful at some of our school sites. And then with group therapy, we have a little over 200 students as of December in receiving group therapy services. The main reasons were behavior. The cultural or generational issues were the newcomer groups. Some of the schools have run newcomer groups specifically for the newcomer students. So that's why that one's higher. And then social skills is a pretty obvious one, especially for the K to 2nd age group. And then in terms of tier 3 crisis, we, as of December, had provided 90 crisis interventions and support. That could range from anything from suicidality to just being extremely dysregulated, showing up in the morning, not able to focus, crying, not really being able to speak about what happened, and really being taken into a counseling room and given the space and time to decompress. So anything in that range would constitute a crisis. 14 students were considered medium to high risk of harming themselves, and 7 students were recommended to receive a hospital evaluation. All of those were facilitated by a counselor. Recently, we actually had a fantastic experience with a student who needed hospitalization through our Stanford partnership and Dr. Shashak Yoshi. We have a psychiatrist who's at one of our school sites 3 hours a week. Last year it was at Roosevelt, this year it's at Hoover. So what happened was the counselor from that school gave me a call. Hey, I have a kid who needs to be hospitalized, because they gave me a call just to give me a heads up in case there's any follow-up. The parent wanted to take their student to Stanford because there's obviously a positive association with that hospital, a lot of trust that's built in the community. So I called Dr. Yoshi and I emailed his psychiatric fellow who's at Hoover. They created a warm handoff with the Stanford ER, and the Stanford ER who actually did the assessment was a psychiatry fellow at Roosevelt last year. And so she was able to connect same day back with the counselor from that student school. They were able to find, the counselor was able to advocate really heavily for hospitalization. They were able to find her a hospital bed, and they stayed in constant communication during the hospitalization. So we're really finding ways to utilize our partners and maximize that, and also highlight that, you know, perhaps without these services, these kids wouldn't be identified and wouldn't be getting these really potentially life-saving connections. And so just kind of to highlight, so the percentage of students who have at least had 1 point of direct contact with a counselor is a little over 25%. And that was as of December. Last year, we had about 20% the whole year. So we're really doing a good job of getting out there a lot quicker in the school year, reaching more students. This does not include SEL lessons. This is really kind of like a direct one-on-one or small group point of contact. And then kind of where we see our data collection moving forward. So the way that we collect data now isn't in PowerSchool or in any sort of our existing systems. So there's no real way to kind of correlate it with attendance or test scores or anything like that. So we're going to see how we can get creative next year to maybe start making those correlations. Again, we're newer to data collection in the mental health field here at the district. So that is something that we are prioritizing for next year. And maybe when we use a lot of data trackers. So, you know, linking the student ID number to it. So that then it's easy to just kind of send that list and get that data. It'll also be interesting to see, because obviously what we would hope to see is that the students who are receiving those tier 2 or tier 3 show more growth, right? Someone who maybe just had one check-in might not show that, but being able to differentiate by the type of service that was delivered. And then kind of a follow-up to that initial survey we did in October, we're going to do a follow-up in May. We're just waiting for like the panorama survey and some other testing to be done so it doesn't compound for our teachers. And we're going to ask some of the same questions, you know, do you know who they are? Do you know where they are? Do you feel comfortable? Just to kind of see if there's any changes. And then we're also going to ask some additional questions like, if you received counseling, what is something you learned? Right? Like, what is something you appreciated from your counselor this year? Maybe something a little more tangible from the students about what they're taking from therapy, and collect it in an anonymous way so that they feel comfortable expressing how they really feel about it. And then along with that, we're also planning to send a survey to teachers and ask them to think of one of your students who received counseling this year. How did you see that impact their engagement in the classroom, their ability to socialize with their peers, things along those lines. So we're going to send those out in May, and I'll take a look at those over the summer and I can bring that back in the fall. I think that's it for me.
Thank you. That was great. I mean, obviously I got to listen to you with the Superintendent Advisory Committee. And I will open up the floor for my colleagues to make any questions or comments to you.
This is great. We really have, anyway, we have not gotten a report like this, I think, in my tenure. I mean, we've gotten different reports over time, but I feel like this was really comprehensive. And I love the way you presented it, by the way. It's very warm and feeling. But a couple of things. One, so I'm wondering, are we going to be able to keep up the staffing that we have this year for next year? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
We talked about it.
I know we kind of talked about it, but and we, you know, it's been a priority of ours for all the reasons that you talked about, but as you know, budgets are tight and things like that. So,
Absolutely.
okay, so that's good to know. I was thinking on the data tracking, you know, is that something the Gardner Center could help us with? Because, you know, we have used them in the past, like they.
Oh, they are working with us very
Okay.
closely.
They help us analyze the data. Where they're limited in helping us is that our counselors have to enter the data, right?
Okay.
Because they have to say, I'm meeting with this student for this number of sessions. This is why they were referred. This is who referred them. We're trying to get all of that data, especially because last year we noticed that a large number of our referrals came from staff and administrators. And so kind of the goal in talking with the counseling team at the end of last year, beginning of this year, was like, we would love to see for the parent and self referrals to increase and kind of balance that out. So there's just an example, but the entering of the data is where, you know,
Okay.
The people delivering it have to be the ones that enter it.
Yeah, because I mean, some of these slides, just with the information that we have, this is amazing. I mean, it's exponentially different than it would have been a few years ago, certainly 5 years ago, but even a few years ago. I mean, to have 77% of our students know who the counselor is on campus. I mean, some of our campuses didn't even have counselors to begin with, but it is remarkable. Anyway, I'm really blown away by the data that we have here, and I look forward to kind of seeing it year over year. And then finally, I just want to say, I think this would be a great Kent Award for us to put in next year.
It will be. It
Okay.
will be.
Okay, for sure. That's why I was like, okay, if we have the staffing, and then we'll have 2 years of data
Yep.
for us. But really, it's an amazing, we need to publicize this even more, and I think we'll get more accolades. So thank you for your leadership and all of this. Thank you for the counselors and everybody's working so hard for students.
Yeah, I again have to just give all the credit to the counselors who are in the school sites doing the work. The reason the percentages are so high is because the counselors are going out and engaging and doing the work.
It's really incredible. It's yeah, awesome.
Awesome. It's super clear that the counselors are out there connecting with kids and counseling. And so the data is crystal clear on that front. What I would love to know, and maybe this is covered elsewhere, like in the Panorama study, but like, do we do mental health surveys of the overall student population, like administration of PHQ-9 for depression or GAD-7 for anxiety? Like, do we know what the mental health is of our student population?
Not to my knowledge, not district wide.
Okay. Because there are these standardized, 9-question, 7-question surveys. I'm also seeing that a bunch of the literature indicates that targeted interventions at students who screen high on depression can be extremely effective. So if we had some benchmark for knowing how our students are doing, and we could feed that data into providing targeted interventions for students who have high anxiety or students who have high depression, and deliver the appropriate intervention for that student, that'd be really powerful. I was intrigued to learn that the anxiety sensitivity training leads to lower truancy rates, and so that can help feed into school attendance that we're looking at here. So I love that you call it out at the end of your deck, that you're looking for ties into academic performance. I also suspect that we're going to find for some of these trainings ties into higher attendance rates as well. So thank you so much for the hard work you're doing, and just be excited to see how we can take it even a step further with data. So thank you.
Yeah, this report was amazing. Thanks so much for putting it together. It really was. It was like the first time that I've seen us at the board level get presented across, like, the cross-cutting view of all of the mental health efforts that we're trying to put in, because we're often looking at it, vendor by vendor, funding source by funding source, and it's like really, I'm always amazed at how the cabinet staff can keep all of this stuff together in their head, because it's really hard, and this is really clear. Great to have the baseline of the data. Excited to see how it changes over the course of time. And it's so neat that you're starting from the very beginning, and like from the data mindset and pulling that stuff in. It's really going to help us, understand and want to continue to put the investment in, because as Lisa said, it's like we have to be, cognizant about where everything's being spent. And I think this is clearly a priority. We've heard it from every school report. I also thank you for the detailed answers to all my questions that I'd sent an email. They came back in like 30 minutes, and it was great. You addressed many of them here and so like on the student voice, there were a couple things that I thought were really actionable that we should be looking into, and you talked about one of them here. But then the little note about like getting other kids to turn in homework, I had a total different interpretation of it. And then hearing your explanation of what might be the root cause, it kind of broke my heart a little bit, because we just spent 2 hours talking with schools about building an environment where kids want to be in school and feel like they belong there. And then to hear that like they're having anxiety in their classroom because they're experiencing the punishment of other kids, or they're having to get punished themselves for other kids' behaviors. Like, that was really, that just got to me, because my kids had experienced that too, and it just didn't enjoy it, and they would not want to go to school the next day. And I could just understand that how that would work. So I'm glad that you shared that and included that comment from the students. And I hope that we can, find other practices that work better for the entire classroom, the entire school, and all the families. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm gonna ditto that last one, because I do hear that, especially being punished for other students' behavior too. I remember that happening to me when I was a student in this district too. So thank you for this. This was wonderful to hear. I'm really proud of our district and all the work that we've done to bring this mental health counseling, and we continue to find money for it. Thanks, Rick. I think it's really important. Obviously, we know that we've been hearing it from everybody. So thank you for continuing to support that. The only question I had, and it came up in one of the presentations tonight, was the limit on the number of sessions students can have. It's 12, and no?
No. So 12 is kind of a guideline that was kind of established in collaboration when the program was kind of starting, and we're kind of figuring out like, what are we doing here? In talking to Dr. Yoshi, we were kind of asking like, in terms of a school-based mental health program, like what's the approach? Because we have to balance. So we do have a lot of kids who could really benefit from a 2-year long intensive individual therapy. But we also want to be proactive, right? And we have kids who maybe just need like 6 or 7 sessions. And if we can get them in early, we prevent them from having to be the kids that need the long term. So 12 is the guideline, right? We want most kids to receive short-term school-based counseling. We do make exceptions, right? Like if a kid needs 20, 25, because let's say we reached to session 12 and we're nearing the end, but oh my God, all of a sudden grandma died. right? Like, okay, well, now there's something new that we have to address and we need some more therapy for it. So it's not you reach the 12th session and we're done. But we do kind of have that guideline of like, our goal is to provide short-term therapy. And for those few that maybe need a little more, then we can provide them more. But in school-based is really this delicate balance of, getting kids in the door and getting them that service, because if we had the capacity, every counselor's, like half of every counselor's caseload would be the same for the entire year. And so it's just a hard juggle between the needs of the long term and the kind of the not so long term.
Thank you. I'm seeing nodding behind you too. So thank you.
Again, thank you very much. And I do want to just point out, I really love the presentation, just like even the slides that you put down. I think it just feels, it's just like so cute. I again appreciate everything you guys do for our students. Our day starts when we first wake up and how we feel. And so I think the mental health clinicians that are actually helping out the students that then help the teachers serve them better. I think it's a plus for our district. And I didn't have any questions. Actually, the question I was going to ask, Janet just asked. So that was really it. I just want to, tell you thank you very much for everything you guys do.
Well, you know how I feel about the program. I think it's fantastic, and your leadership, along with Stanford and the other counselors. Mary Ann, thank you. Got the name right this time. It's just phenomenal. The data is what's great, because the data allowed us to get that grant. This is the data you used. Was this the data?
Yes, it is.
That's what I thought. And so, and us to go out and seek additional funding for mental health, because it does exist. The more data we have, the better our chances are. So, Ana Paula, my hat's off to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for being the leader in this for us, and also for having that collaboration piece with Stanford and Dr. Josie. I mean, they're helping us with the Wellbeing Center. We finally have the funding for it. Ana Paula put a lot of time and energy into that program to get it off the ground. And so, as Rick and I spoke, a few $100,000 coming our way for that. So should be here. Now, Ana Paula thinks it's by the end of the end of the month is coming up really soon.
That's the last I was told. I don't know if they moved the deadline.
So I'm thinking May.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
Well, and I think one of you had a question about like the potential future funding of the program. So something I can add to it is that statewide, as of January 2024, schools will be able to request reimbursement from Medi-Cal and managed care plans for services provided in schools. That can start January 2024. Part of this grant that we are receiving money for the Wellness Center, there's a chunk of money that the County Office of Ed, Mary McGrath, is kind of leading the charge there, is to create an electronic health system that all the districts within the County Office of Ed can use for that kind of billable service. So that is something that's in the works of kind of getting set up, again, to kind of bring more sustainability to programs like these. So that's something that we're working on and kind of figuring out who can bill, who can't bill. We also don't want billing to be a limiting factor to any of our families, right? Like if you don't have a managed care plan, we can't see you, right? We don't want that to be the case. So how do we get creative and maximize that offering?
And I just want to say that that's something the California School Boards Association and many of your board members across the state advocated for, to basically allow us to be able to do that. So that's going to be huge for not only our district, but all the schools.
Yeah.
In terms of a funding mechanism. Yeah. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
And then I think we should vote because it's already past 10 o'clock, just to extend the meeting.
The closed session. So until 11, or, I mean, I think we'll be done by 10:45. But.
Do you want to just say 11, just to be on the safe
I'll make a
side?
motion to extend the meeting till 11.
Seconded.
Aye.
Aye.
We'll try to be quicker.
Oh. Just stay up.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving along then, we're on to item 9, discussion items. So Board of Trustees graduation and promotion assignments for this.
You have that here.
I mean, my schedule looks fine, but if, I don't know if anyone has, I don't have any on Friday. So if someone has a conflict on Friday, I can, and I also only have 2 sites, so I'm available to pick up a third one. But if nobody has a problem on Friday, that's not a problem at all.
Yeah. So Celia, I noticed that you looked like you had, oh, I see. They've been whited out. Never mind.
Yeah, just.
Because I was like, I don't know how Cecilia's going to be in those 2 places at once. Okay, never mind. So we
And-
still have a couple of openings.
And then I'm happy to, obviously, since I'm not going to be able to do the earlier shift from Thursday, I'm happy to,
Yeah,
to help out on Friday.
The Roosevelt one at 3 o'clock on that Thursday. That's helpful. I mean, I think one of our issues is I think there was too many at that one time. I don't think we have enough of us. So,
Right.
but I can do the 3 o'clock. So put me down for that one. Like I went to Roosevelt. Oh, that's a 5th grade promotion. It's not the 8th grade one. I went to the 8th grade one last year. I mean, do you think there's any opportunity for one of these to shift by, you know, if they, I don't know, have they already told everybody what time it is? Okay.
I believe a communication was sent out already with the
dates.
dates of the graduation. Yeah.
It looks like all of us have something on that Thursday evening, I think.
My main concern is I just have 2 back-to-backs. I've got Orion at 5 and then Garfield at 6.
Oh.
So I'm not sure how to teleport.
Typically, we prioritize the 8th grade graduations over 5th grade promotion, unless you have a 5th grade. Do you have a 5th grader?
No, kinder and second.
Okay, I didn't think you had a 5th grader. I mean, if you had a 5th grader, I would say you're going to prioritize that one. That's your own child.
Yeah.
I mean, typically that's what we've done, right? John, we have
Right.
prioritized going to the 8th grade graduation, but
Okay.
because the promotion ceremonies, we didn't used to always go to those,
That's
but
right.
they sort of last many years we started going to them. It's nice to go to them. Yeah.
I'm reading that as nobody else can tag in for Thursday, 5 p.m. at Orion.
I think the problem is I'm at Roy Cloud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I have Thursday at 6, so I'd be in the same predicament.
Are our facilities people going to be able to help with all of these? Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, they have the schedule.
Okay.
I just need fractional trustees, right? So I can
Well, and
break
the thing
Mike's
too-
arm.
Even just for you to get across town,
Yeah.
that's, do not take Middlefield. Because it's under construction.
Okay, so then based on that, I'm going to formally say that I'm not going to the Thursday, 5 p.m. at Orion in order to be able to prioritize going to the Garfield promotion at 6.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I'll let Catherine.
So disappointing, Catherine.
We still don't have somebody for Roosevelt 8th grade. But I don't think that we can. I mean, I
Yeah,
think all of
when
us
I looked
are.
at it early on, I couldn't figure out how we could make it. work.
Yeah.
It'll be a little easier next year because Roosevelt will no longer have an 8th grade. Garfield will no longer have an 8th grade.
Where are we sending John?
John goes all over the place. And so do cabinet members.
Like the Tooth Fairy.
So do the cabinet members.
Maybe I should do. Maybe I should go to the Roosevelt one instead of the Clifford one. Because they're both at 5:30. So like the time, I don't know if that makes a difference, only because it is sort of the last 8th grade year for Roosevelt, right?
It's the last year, 8th year for Roosevelt.
I don't know if that makes sense or not.
So Mike, you would go to.
I mean, they're both at 5:30, so I could
Right.
do one or the other. I could either do Clifford or Roosevelt, but they're both scheduled at the same time.
Clifford they have a lot of their teachers present, they have a big.
Yeah, they have a
program,
big
So
program.
they probably won't miss you as much. I mean, Roosevelt, I think.
I don't think Roosevelt would miss me either, but you know.
But that is a nice, I wish Roosevelt last year. It was a really nice
Yeah.
ceremony.
Mike, I'm
Really
gonna put
enjoyed
you
it.
at Roosevelt.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay, and we'll take you off of Clifford.
Okay.
And then cabinet will be there, and so cabinet member, so.
Yes, all right. Perfect.
Yeah, take you off Clifford. All right, then are we set?
So just to confirm, Orion and Clifford will have cabinet members.
Right.
They're the only ones.
There's always a cabinet member
Yeah.
or myself there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's no board trustees assigned to.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to consent items. Can I please get a motion to approve?
I'll
the
move to
consent-
approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And action item 11.1, approval of recruitment incentive stipend for hard-to-fill middle school special education and bilingual teacher positions.
So we are midpoint in our hiring season, and we still have quite a few of positions to fill. We are exploring options with recruitment from organizations that will provide or work with us to provide international candidates. And we're going through the visa process. So in an effort to recruit local individuals and those outside of our state, perhaps, we are requesting for this incentive to be approved, and it was negotiated with our CTA.
I'll move to approve it.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item, 11.2, adoption of resolution 32, authorizing the establishment of a bank clearing account.
Good evening, excuse me. We already have a clearing account for our district. This is simply providing a copy that the San Mateo Treasury did not have, as well as the County Office of Education, nor could we find one in our offices. So we're not creating a new account. It's simply recognizing the account we already have with the treasurer, with our bank for the deposits into the treasury.
Let's hold on to this one.
Does somebody want to make a motion to approve?
I would move to approve resolution 32.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Board and superintendent reports. Wait.
I'll go. Let's see, we had a bond committee meeting just to go over the priority list that was presented tonight. And I attended a wellness committee meeting yesterday. And Petrinia presented on some of the stuff going on, especially in the kitchens, the milk dispensers at what school is it? Does anybody know? I can't remember either. Do you know? No? Okay.
Is it McKinley?
I don't think it was.
I could be wrong on that. I've seen the pictures and heard the stories. but I don't think it is.
Anyway, so it's trying to reduce the waste of the cartons and stuff that go in the trash. And so that was kind of neat. And also Petrinia mentioned the what are the cook, what's it called? It's too late, you guys. My brain's not working. The next chef competition that's going to be at Henry Ford. It's yes. So if anybody can go as a judge, I highly recommend it. It's great. You get to eat the food from the students. It's really fun. I think that same time we also have the induction. And there was something else going on. And so I don't, but both of those induction and the chef competition are both at Henry Ford. So pop into both of them. Yeah.
Go try a little bit of food. Go to the induction, go back to sample food.
I'm going to be in Plano, Texas that day, unfortunately. But I am touring Orion's Kitchen tomorrow afternoon. And yesterday afternoon, I was at the LCAP committee. fellow trustee Wells.
Yeah, they've been mentioned, the bond team that Janet mentioned, and we did discuss the final project, but like always, just so you know, we are not making decisions in this meeting. We're just working with them to make sure that the agenda that comes to the board to make decisions is represented. So I was really trying to make sure that the suggestions that everyone had made were reflected in that. And that's why I wanted to make sure you had your voice again in today's. The Redwood City Education Foundation had their equity summit yesterday. That was really nice. There was a panel that delved into the social and economic realities of just living in the Bay Area and that impact on schools. There's a nice panel from, we had, former director of community schools, Patti Ortiz was there, and Principal Guzman was there. And Patti did an amazing job of talking about the full spectrum of challenges that families, particularly at the schools that we're trying to prioritize, are coming to school with, and just how the school is just a piece of it, but like really you need the whole community to contribute to it. And I just thought they did a wonderful job presenting. And the LCAP meeting, just so you all know, we learned about the student LCAP committee, which we had seen before, how that was pulled in. So that was really neat. And you'll probably hear about it when the LCAP gets presented. There's a video that's in my watch list. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm gonna. There's 2 more meetings for the LCAP committee, like work group, all the stakeholders before it comes to the board. And as a reminder, that'll be June 21st for discussion and the 28th for adoption. That's it.
Okay, so I mentioned that I went to the progress seminar this weekend, and the workshops were around workforce, housing, zero carbon climate, and then this heart intelligence, which was really cool. Anyway, it was very good. Mostly, the networking was awesome. Actually talked to one biotech company that's interested in helping us with STEM. So I have a follow-up to do there, and I'll get back to you, but I'm hoping maybe we can connect her with a couple of our schools and, they can help out. Jen and Tech had given their example. And then after that, because they're super involved in South City. And so anyway, I was talking to this woman from a biotech company. So I'll follow up with that. CSBA has a new PACER. That's the public advocate that works a lot with us school board members. And what I wanted to say about her, this is amazing. This woman, she went to John Gill. She went to Kennedy. She went to Sequoia. She graduated from college. She worked at Mark Berman's office for a year. She was classmates with Clara, so she knew Clara. And she's amazing. She knows a ton about education because she worked for Mark Berman with education. And, and Berman's office has been very good to us. But anyway, so she's going to be our person. And it was just delightful. I had a great conversation with her, and it just warmed my heart to see one of our own kind of coming up and who's going to be helping San Francisco, San Mateo County, and Santa Clara County on a lot of education advocacy issues. And so school board members will definitely get to meet her, but she also works with superintendents, administrators, and others. So she's going to know Redwood City. So I feel like as we kind of tick off things that we need help with, we can go to her, and then she can be a liaison to CSBA and help us out. And her name is Rita Abdel Malik, if anybody knows her. I'm sure some of the John Gill and John Gill and Kennedy teachers would remember her. Anyway, that's it.
Can you say more on the workforce housing?
Yeah. So basically, they had different panels, and let me think for that particular one. It had a lot to do with they talked about different skills so they had companies who were talking about workforce and skills that they need, and it was a lot of the stuff that we've talked about. So making sure that kids have good soft skills and that sort of thing, but also academics. So there were some biotech folks, sustainability office. They had a biorobotics from Procept was her name. So anyway, it was just kind of about workforce challenges. I don't know that I heard anything that new at it, just that everybody is suffering from workforce challenges and that we need to prepare students and also retrain some of our adults into the jobs that are needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And for me, last week I attended the Redwood City Together World Cafe. That was awesome. I felt it was I actually even said it was probably a really nice space, and they talked, or we heard from people, and especially the BIPOC community leaders, on how to inspire the youth in our community to be leaders as well. So it was just an excellent space for people to just kind of share their perspectives. And the other thing, it was the Superintendent Advisory Council, again, on mental health. And I won't go into too many details because I know it's getting late. And also the RCF Summit, which again was great to hear. And that was it for me.
Might have been mentioned. The equity piece and also the superintendent's advisory meeting.
Okay, so information items, we move 13.1. So 13.2 is contract update information and credit card summary.
Question?
No questions.
No questions.
Okay. And then 13.3, information on San Mateo County Investment Fund for February. Great. And then 13.4, information on the San Mateo County for March. No questions. Okay, great. Thank you. Correspondence?
Continue to get public records requests.
Yeah, that's true.
And okay, any possible other business or suggested items?
Just a quick note that we've now gone through all the different SIPSAs, lots of different presentations, and we probably have some feedback about themes that we saw in them, ways in which the presentations were structured that were really helpful, things that we might want to change for next year's SIPSAs. So just while it's still fresh, we may want to consider just doing sort of a review and a recap and thinking about what we might want to do for next year round.
Would this be, I mean, obviously, I'm open if it's a board thing, but is this something more that whether cabinet and you, Dr. Baker, would relate to the board, or is this something?
It's something that I believe that we as a superintendent and cabinet members would like to hear from you.
Okay.
What would you like to see differently? Would you like us to go in a different direction? What I'm planning on doing, and we have to meet, we need to meet on what date that I can meet and do it like an offsite with you. Part of it's to go through my contract, and then the other part is this is a good example.
This would be a good retreat.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Add it to the.
Right. Yeah. So that we need to come up. What would be great if you could send me times in June that you're not available. Like a day that days that you're not, it would be a day, we're not going to make it, a couple days. It'll be a day for sure. That you're not available to attend because.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's fine.
I know it's good. It's good. Days you're not available to attend in June. And it's probably best after school is let out, I guess, I don't know. I'll leave it up to you. That way we can,
And the LCAP is written.
Oh yeah, and the LCAP is written, so they'll.
Well, what's good for you guys? So is it like the last 2 weeks of June or the last week of June or? Okay. So why don't we look at the last 2 weeks of June and we'll give you dates on those
That you're not available.
not available.
Then you and I will meet.
I'm around.
Great, thank you, David. And then any changes to the board meeting calendar? Are there any changes? No? Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn? the
I
meeting?
move to adjourn the meeting.
Closed
To
session.
close
To
session.
the closed session.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Great, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.